Well, so in the run-up to the 2016 general elections, the New Patriotic Party, led by then candidate Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, promised to ensure the country doesn't return to the days of doomsday should they ever be voted into power. In fact, they criticized the then government, the John Mahama-led National Democratic Congress, of not having the capacity to solve the erratic power outages then. For close to 8 years, many will say they've made good of their promise to ensure stable power supply. But in the last few months, things have taken a nosedive. The power situation has been nothing short of erratic. This has even led to what some describe as a power play of a sort within the power sector. The cash waterfall mechanism, for example, was thrown into the dustbin without any explanation by the power distributor, ECG. Now, power generators at a point had to threaten to shut down their plant due to non-payment of debt by the ECG. WAPCO have done the same. The question that many people in the sector keep asking is, what really is the challenge? Many have said it is an issue of finance. Is it really the case? How do we solve this recurrent issue of doomsday once and for all as a nation? It is for this reason that we have gathered around this table tonight to deliberate on the solutions to fix Ghana's energy sector. So we have assembled some of the best brains in the energy sector to help us together with you at home, help government to deal with this challenge. And we know that we believe this will be once and for all. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace, and it's always my pleasure to welcome you to the JoyNews National Dialogue. And today we're looking at guaranteeing reliable power supply. For the next 3 hours, let's find the solutions together. Welcome. Now let's share with you where we have come from to where we are today, starting from what we've been able to piece together. So if you look at what we have, in case of electricity access rate, we have 88.75%. So a total population of over 30 million. How many of us have electricity? At 88.75%. In terms of numbers, what does it stand for? It is around over 20 million. So, I mean, to put it succinctly, we have around 21 point something million people. So 27.8 million people, Ghanaians, who have access to electricity. That's what we're talking about. So this is important because when there are power outages, it means that about 27.8 Ghanaians are the ones suffering from the power outages, what we call doomsday. Okay, so let's tell you more about, this major electricity crisis. Now, what even brings this home for us to really understand where we are is that in terms of power outages, from January to March 2024, we recorded 4,142. So this really puts this beyond argument or discussion about whether we are in doomsday or not, because from January to March, we recorded 4,142 outages. This means that in a day, we record 44 power outages. And this is nationwide. You must understand that, in terms of Ghana, it's not only ECG that controls it. We have ECG and we have NEDCO. So, for NEDCO and ECG customers combined, we've recorded 44 outages a day since January to March. We're in April, so the number has gone up. Now, let's understand that this is not the first time we're going through this. Like I told you earlier, in the lead up to the 2016 election, this was a major issue. You need to understand that, every government in the Fourth Republic has had to deal with doomsday. In the Rawlins's time, you remember those days when we used to watch Acapulco. When there's no power in your house, you would walk to a house where there is power for you to watch. Those were the days we're experiencing those doomsday. Now, Kufuor's time was also not exempted from this. He also had to deal with some sort of doomsday himself, in that regime, before we moved into the Mills Mahama regime. And that was when we went through the most critical period of experiencing the harshest kind of doomsday, because from 2012 to 2015, we had to deal with doomsday. And in terms of money that a country lost, we lost $686.4 million within that period, from 2012 to 2015. This was the money we lost annually. So if you calculate by the number of years, it tells you the extent of money that we lost to doomsday within that period. So it tells you that, in fact, there's a lot more for us to deal with. Now, what is the cost of doing so between 2012 and 2015 then? We understand that 885 SMEs lost 250 million cedis cumulatively. That's huge. How many SMEs got folded up? Now, around 85 SMEs had to fold up. And that talks about job creation then, because if around 85 SMEs or 55 or so had to shut down, then it tells you that if each one of them was employing, say, 100 people, how many people lost their jobs there? So it brings it home. So that's the cost of doing so in that period from 2012 to 2015. Losing over $600 million a year for that 3 years, and then we understand that 885 SMEs lost 250 million, cumulatively, and then 55 SMEs got closed down. That is how, this whole. But let's also try and share with you more about, this whole doomsday crisis and where we've been to. Now, let me share with you, the cost of the power outages from what we have learned and from what the experts say. What we do know is that financial challenges are one of the issues why we are where we are. Now, again, we understand that fuel supply challenges. If you don't have money, how can you buy the fuel to power the thermal plant? Now, you understand that in the energy mix of this country, thermal plant constitute majority, and therefore you need fuel to power them. So if you don't have money, you can't buy fuel, and therefore the challenges will continue. We also know that there are other infrastructural challenges, because we know we have plants that are down for maintenance, plants that need to be worked on, that are not, plants that are out because of some fault. All these form part of the challenges. We also do know that there are power generation challenges, because if the plants are down, if you don't have fuel to power them, of course, you cannot generate power. And that's why we are where we are. Now, so I've already spoken to you about our generation mix. Now, thermal, which is fuel dependent, makes up 64.4%. That takes a chunk of our generation mix. For hydro, it's 34.9%. But you do know that Gridco told us recently that even Bui is almost getting to its limit. Therefore, we only use it at peak times. So, depending on the water levels, you cannot even have absolute power coming from Bui when you want to use it throughout the day because of the level of the water. Now, solar, we have around 0.7%. And then, waste, we're not there yet. Well, let's look at the adverse effect of doomsday now. Now, we know that because there's no fuel for us to power the plant, and then of course your power supply will decrease because you don't have power. The generation is not enough to meet how much you need. Then of course, when there's not enough to supply, what do? We have to share the power. We have to share amongst ourselves. And then of course, it then leads to what we've all come to accept as doomsday. So that is what it is. And this is coming from the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. Now, let's look at the projected cost of fuel, what we need in this year to fuel the plant that we do have. The Energy Commission says if it looks at what we are to consume for 2024, we have to spend $1.14 billion to buy fuel. Remember, we've gone to the IMF for a $3 billion loan. Just yesterday, the Kumasi one also came on board. So it means that even the amount of fuel we will need for this year will be more than 1.14 billion. So you're using almost more than a quarter of what you went to borrow to buy fuel if you don't get it from ECG, the funds from ECG. So that's how it is. Now let's look at how much fuel we consume in a day, to produce power. Now, what we demand is 450 million standard cubic feet of gas. What we're able to get is 390 million cubic feet of gas. So what we have in deficit is 60 million standard cubic feet of gas. That's what you need so that you'd avoid doomsday. Let's share with you, what we are not able to utilize from the energy capacity. 42% of total installed capacity is not utilized. Why? Because we are made to understand that some of the plants, we don't have power, we don't have money to buy fuel for them. Some are, our inability to. So some of them too are down for maintenance and other issues. So some of them we're not able to get. But once we're going through this doomsday, How is it impacting you and I? Now, the Ghana Medical Association say that in terms of hospitals, they are unable to access patient files. And once you are not able to do that, you know what that means. Again, expensive medical equipment that we even find difficult to buy because of the power outages are being destroyed. That's according to the GMA. So you're not able to buy, but when we buy too because of doomsday, then they keep breaking. Now, again, we were warned that it could lead to possible decomposition of bodies. When that happens, health implications would have to come in here. So this is what, the whole thing, talks about in terms of what the impact of doomsday will be. Well, we've been running our own doomsday diaries to tell the stories of how the power crisis is affecting Ghanaians trying so hard to put food on the table of their families. My colleague James Aveji spoke to some people who run cold store business in Accra and came through this report.
I'm here in the heart of Malata Market in Accra to explore the doomsday diary of operators of frozen food shops, your popular cold stores. The buzzing business of buying and selling is the demand for frozen foods, fish, meat, and others. At least today, the lights are on in the market, but operators of these cold stores, just like you and I, have been battling a peculiar problem in the past few months. Doomsday.
The leaders need to be honest with us on this power issue. They can turn off the lights early in the morning and bring it back very late in the evening. Why are they not being forthcoming with us? If it's not doomsday, then what is it?
Chocho, one of the owners of the cold stores here, tells me on several occasions he has had to dispose of some products which went bad because of the unstable power supply.
The cost of the fish has also gone up. The ones we used to buy for 100 cedis now sells for between 400 to 600 cedis. The moment the fish becomes tender, no one wants to buy them. We are usually left with no option than to dispose of the cold foods that have gone bad. We are pleading with government to resolve the power crisis.
Another trader, Aja, says 3 weeks ago, when the doomsday became intense, tens of cartons of fish and meat products in his cold room went bad, running into loss of thousands of cedis.
The last time I
How many? What's the amount?
Yes. Wow. Our chicken carton is 320. 20 cedis per one carton. The last time I threw about 10 boxes away. Yeah.
And the fishes?
The fish, the salmon to a carton is 1,030. 30 cedis. We threw about 4 or 5 away because of all it's melt and it's spoiled. Yeah.
Did you have to, after that, what happens? You have to bear the cost, you move on, you buy new one, and then you start?
That one, the constant. So far as that one is spoiled, we have to put different money into the business again. So we can't blame the government to come and give us any money now. So it's this thing.
Another cost the coastal managers bear is the purchase of spare parts to repair their gadget, which now breaks down consistently due to the flickering power.
The
moment the light starts going off and on, it damages our machines. And these machines are expensive to repair. We are always incurring losses.
At this point, I grew interest in why Chocho and Aja are unable to provide alternative power to protect their investment. Do you have generator you use for your...
I do not have a generator as a backup because I sell at the market. It is an open space. The noise from the generator will disturb traders and customers.
Not that we can't buy a generator, but where we are now, we don't have a space here to mount that generator at us now.
But in the middle of all this, Aja says officials of the ECG have visited their shops to already inform them about a possible bill increment. How much approximately do you pay in a month?
This is prepaid.
This is prepaid.
Yeah, and you can buy 1,500, 2,000.
1,500, 2,000 in a month.
Yeah.
For your prepaid.
Yeah.
I mean, but we've seen some communications that the ECG is asking for more increment on the bill.
Yeah, it's true. They even came here.
They came here.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But our code room, if they break, we off it. In the even they on it. Yeah.
I mean, if they increase the bill, but there is no doom saw or light out, would you be willing to pay?
Oh yeah, yeah. If there's no doom saw or light out, the business is going on. We can pay whatever we get.
The two are united in the demand for a schedule to cut the loss.
So no so obeya on now so ni obia hu say eye dum so na aba esan say first mama mre so no say dum so no wo ho hu na we de enye saa ukoka ye sin ye saa ukina kwa ye sin ye saa ubi so obi o say susu de bia dum so na wo na ha ye na sese ye nam sese ye niema nti mun kan kire ne say se epa no cho so num say dum so no wo ho a aya o ma ye hwana o na so no man ni nyina nti ne hu say dum so na wo nti mun ma na so nti say se epa no.
We are pleading with government to provide a Dumso timetable, as was done during John Mahama's regime. That's the least we can ask for.
The war kakra na beton ade china kanya na be bansa na be kwakofa na yakofa enu be boaye chain sisi amoye no. If
there is a timetable about Dumso, we all know that by this day the lights will go off. You have to arrange yourself. You won't go and take plenty goods down before lights will go out. So you know what you take before the Dumso will come.
They hope stakeholders, including the ECG, Gridco, and government, gives a listening ear to them and find solutions to rescue their businesses. From Malata Market here in Accra, James Kwesi Aveji on today's episode of Dumso Diaries for Joy News.
All right, so that is the piece my colleague James Aveji worked on, telling the impact of on the everyday lives of Ghanaians. Well, joining us for this national dialogue, people who are well versed in this area. In studio, I have Dr. Steve Mantel. He's chairman of the Coalition of Stakeholders on Electricity Contract and Arrangement. Doc, thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Great. We also have another person who really, you cannot talk about, energy issues without him. Do I say Mr. Kwame Jantua, Esquire? He is a very, very well-versed person in the energy issues in Ghana. Chief, good evening. Thanks for coming.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. Well, we also have another person that, well, when it comes to issues about generation, supply, when you're talking about it and then the workers need to speak, he comes into the picture here. Mr. Michael Nyantishi is Chairman, Public Utilities Workers Union, POO. Thanks, sir. He's General Secretary. Oh, thank you for coming, sir. And then, as someone who has taken time to really explain issues when issues about the energy sector, be it fuel, be it power, comes up. He is a former Deputy Minister of Energy, an MP for Second D. Lawyer Andrew Ejapa Mesa. Good evening, sir.
Evening.
We're on Joy, else I would have asked you not to them.
Of course. I mean, Ottoden is a Ghanaian language.
Anyway, well,
very widely.
It's even better we speak in local language. For the ordinary man to understand.
That is right.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll also be joined via Zoom by the ranking member on the Energy Committee, John Abdullahi Janapo, as well as chairman of the committee, Honorable Samuel Atachia. He is joining us via Zoom as well. Again, we're expecting to be joined in the studio by Dr. Elik Blim Kwabla Akpetogbo. He is the chief executive for the Chamber of Independent Power Generators, Ghana. He'll be joining us very, very shortly. But let me start with you, Dr. Steve Mantel. Why are we where we are?
Right. Thank you, Kojo. I presented a paper on the energy sector at the University of Cape Coast a while ago, and I find
this paper relevant to our current situation. So with your permission, I'd like to read some excerpts from the paper. In 2013, a report authored by the World Bank noted, and the title of the report really is Energizing Economic Growth in Ghana, Making the Power and Petroleum Sectors Rise to the Challenge. And this is what the World Bank had to say. At a time when the Ghanaian economy is achieving sustained growth in excess of 6% annually, with ambitions to raise this further, there is a risk that misguided and inappropriate policies would lead to the power sector becoming a drag on the economy. And it wasn't too long when this prophecy was fulfilled, plunging Ghana into an unprecedented era of doomsday. Now, in its diagnosis of the problems confronting the energy sector, the World Bank was of the view that the energy sector faced two main challenges arising from forces external to the sector. And these were, one, lack of inadequate and secure quantities of reasonably priced fuel for power generation, and the lack of adequate public funds to finance the sector's investments requirements. So there are two angles to the problem. First is financial resources to be able to procure fuel, and then the second leg of it has to do with critical investments that needs to be made. And you are talking here about equipment renewal and installation of additional facilities to cope with growing population numbers and also rapid urbanization. And so these were the two major factors. And for me, this was in 2012.
Okay.
Today, 2024, we are here again. It's all like a deja vu. A very familiar place for all of us. And so I'm really happy that we are meeting today to have a discussion in terms of how we resolve these issues sustainably. Now, we have a national company that was not doing well. We handed it over to a private sector entity, operated the ECG using Ghanaian staff and engineers, and we saw some little improvement. So question is, why is it that when we put Ghanaians in place to manage state enterprises, they don't do so well? Is it their fault? Is it not their fault? I think these are issues we need to look into. I have a firm belief in the Ghanaian manager. Our Ghanaian managers are very competent when we give them the space to work. I recall at the time when we privatized the water company, Ghana Water, under a management contract arrangement, services by the company deteriorated, and those were the times we saw the Kufuor gallons all over the place. After 5 years of that experiment, we decided we're not getting our desired due from the arrangement, so we refused to renew the contract. Now, so we let go Akwa Vitensran and handed the management of the assets back to Ghana Water. And then services began to improve. And so the question is the Ghanaian manager very bad that he cannot manage a public asset? My response to this will be no. We need to deal with certain issues. And for me, the major issue we need to deal with is political interference and how we insulate these enterprises from the undue interferences from political authority. And here again, a lot of the times you see that our political authority blatantly break our laws. The proper way of filling vacancies in public sector institutions, including state-owned enterprises, is through the route of the Public Services Commission. So if a vacancy becomes available, It's supposed to be advertised. And then those who feel competent enough to do the job apply. And then they get the job. And when they are working, they don't need to look at the face of any politician. Today, we have a situation where state-owned enterprise positions, sometimes even junior staff positions like communication or public relations officers, get appointed with a change of government.
But it's where we are as a result of, human resource.
Human resource in the sense of what?
I mean, you're saying that politicians push people into positions even when they are not actually qualified for the job. And I'm asking, is our problems confronting the power sector as a result of that kind of development?
It's partly the reason, because we don't get the right people in the right place. Okay. So it's partly the reason. If we went through a competitive process and gave the needed space to these people to work, I'm pretty sure they would deliver.
Okay.
And so a lot of times, the reason, I believe strongly, the reason we are today not being told the truth, the entire truth about what has happened in the sector, is because of political considerations and the fear that we'll be handing over some advantage to the opposition party to campaign against the certain government.
All right, I'm grateful to you for that. Let me bring in the chairman of the of the Mines and Energy Committee, because from all that you're saying, we need to find out whether or not they met the industry players some few days ago in Parliament to try to understand where we are. So let me bring him in and find out. Mr. Atacha, thanks for joining us here on the National Dialogue on Joy News. Now,
a pleasure as always.
I want to find out from you, were you told all the truth when you met the players in the sector?
Well, to a very reasonable extent, the issues were clear to us and the problems too were obvious. And I didn't see anybody trying to say that, oh, you overruled in terms of what you are trying to assert as a problem that is confronting the nation. So it was a congregation of the key players in the supply chain. And that was a very comprehensive engagement, and it became clear to us. So we tabled about, let me count, we tabled about, I think, 8 observations and sent to the president, the stakeholders themselves, to the speaker, and then the majority leader and the minority leader, for them to understand what is going on. And then we expect that action will be taken on some of these matters to bring us to normalcy. Okay. Bear in mind that for good measure, close to over 7 years now, we have had power. So I have always said that why should we say that the closing chapter of the president, I mean, we should come to this kind of situation. So he is acutely aware of some of the challenges that is affecting the sector now, and he owes it to his name to remedy it.
What were these 8 observations that you made?
Okay, if you permit me. We said that the president should secure the synergy among the critical players in the power value chain, especially the Minister for Finance, the Minister for Energy, the Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, the Chief Executive of the Volta River Authority, and the Chief Executive of Gridco. We're very, very much concerned about it. One issue that cropped up was, as Riley said, fuel. So we said the Minister for Finance should use every financial activity to make available to the generator, namely TAPCO, TICO, TT, T1PP, TT2PP, Ameri, and the rest of them, same power and the rest of them. But if these are thermal setups, and critically, without the availability of fuel, they will not be able to generate what to expect. And it's a money issue, and it should be found, because the cost to the economy of having power outages sometimes is incalculable. So the money should be found to ensure that fuel is secure for these markets. And then we can be assured of a very consistent power generation. We're also concerned about the fuel efficiency, which is to say that if there's a plant that you receive fuel but will not generate adequate capacity as another plant, then we should look at the priority of generation in terms of the availability and do a selective way of giving fuel to them to secure optimum generation of the fuel. We were talking about the technical regulator was also stating that even some maintenance issue has got to do with machine, and therefore data is a challenge. And we insisted that that should not be the case. We expect the Energy Commission to fix whatever technology it has to get along with the proper data, and then they could advise those who matter. Without the data, I don't think they'll be able to do what is right. One thing we said, without mentioning words, is what PRC is also asserting now, that it is imperative that the generality of Ghanaians should know in advance when they will be deprived of power, so that ECG's load-shedding timetable should be clear. ECG was a bit worried about when RIDCO gives professional and engineering information before they can also plan along. We said that synergy should be so strong, and there shouldn't be a situation in which the people of Ghana going through such a challenge are also bereft of information regarding how they will plan their lives. I've heard about even mortuary issues, which I believe leads my to desire. But what I will tell you upfront, I keep saying it, I do not see any hospital facility where it is needed anywhere in the world that will not have backup generation of power. Somebody will say that they don't even have money to power generators that they've hired. Look, it's imperative. You cannot come and tell somebody that I'm going to depend on erratic power supply, and somebody is in the operating theater. Because of that, there was no automatic connection between what ECG is bringing to the surgery room and what our system would tip it immediately. There's a power. It put life at risk. So fundamental to the run of a hospital is a backup generator, which is a must. And that is something that I have also said we should look at it critically. I think we were very concerned about the cash waterfall mechanism, which is that, according to the players, the safest arrangement, ECG should rake in the money, and the money should be applied so that those who are generating the power will also have adequate money to continue, so that the circle of business will not be curtailed. We are 100% aware of some of the challenges that ECG is going through, but nevertheless, it is imperative that the cash waterfall mechanism should work. And if there are anything that the government should do so that ECG should stand on its feet about some of this, but we are also told that if and when they comply fully with the cash waterfall mechanism, they might suffer operational challenges. But the regulator is well, that could not be something of concern to us. We should go by it. So let's look at what will make ECG comatose without probably they putting their hand in the cash waterfall mechanism. And let's see whether there will be a way to resolve this. We are also very much concerned that, ECG had a climb of revenue from about 69.7 million out, in 2021, and it went up to about 10 billion out in 2023, which is to say that they are determined to plug in the loopholes in terms of the generation returns. That if you have about 27% of what you generate being losses, I don't see how any serious undertaking can post profits if 27% of what is supposed to be your revenue goes down the drain. And if it means serious recapitalization of the nation's major electricity distributor, we should do so. So, in short, these are some of the matters we pried into, and then we also profit the views of the committee. And then the president has it. the generators of power, everybody in the value chain is aware of what you've tabulated. And we pray that very soon we shouldn't go through the crisis we find ourselves.
And that's some great work there that the committee did. Let me come in and let me come back to the studio and bring in Kwame Janto here. You've listened to the chairman. Do these 8 points reflect what you think are the challenges confronting us, and what if solved, would bring us back to the, adequate power supply that we're looking for?
Good morning to our viewers. Oh, sorry, good evening to our viewers. Because you're always on the morning show, so see it as morning. Good evening to our viewers. Look, so far as I can see, I do not understand why companies that are in the same value chain, companies that are producing electricity in different forms, service to the public, are quarreling in public. I've never understood it. I don't understand why PRC, ECG, Gridco, they are quarreling seemingly in public. I think that should stop. It doesn't show confidence with the people, because the people are there to get confidence from those who are serving them. It doesn't show confidence. But the overarching challenge there is finance. And finance is in two sides. There's finance to run and there's finance to earn. So I see the challenge. Finance is the top. You have debt, you have equipment inefficiencies, you have maintenance, you have cash waterfall, you have fuel purchases, you have personal interest, and you have politics. So when you look at debt, it's thrown through. And please, let me say, I don't want to situate these things only in this term. I'm situating it within this Fourth Republic. We have had Dumso because it keeps recurring all the time. It would be unfair to situate it in one term, because we have gone a full cycle and come back to the same thing. So it means the challenges that befell us then still befall us now. And we don't seem to have done anything about it. When you look at, maybe we've done something, but it hasn't been able to sort the problems. When you look at equipment efficiency, and you look at some of VIRA's plants, not all of them run efficiently. I understand that the single cycle plants are not that efficient. Should we not get efficient planning? How do we invest money in there to get that efficient planning? How about the cash waterfall mechanism? There's quite a lot of challenges there, quite a lot of questions to be answered there, quite a lot of things to be done to get it back in line. And it's a question of, one, leadership. It's a question of being able to follow what the cash waterfall was meant for. And when you look at the PwC report and you look at some of the recommendations they've made, really, you ask yourself, why couldn't we follow this from the word go? And please, as I say, we are looking at a period. We are not looking at a section here. Now, fuel purchases. We have combined cycles, don't we? And we have some that take fuel. Which is most important? Should we use gas or should we use liquid for it? And this is where the personal interest clicks in. Because there are people who want to make money on these purchases. Where the personal interest is, you have personal interest to do with poles, purchase of poles, purchase of meters, purchase of fuel. And that stops. Those who are supposed to run because they have leaders they are working with. I do not think any of the heads of these departments can come out and do anything they want to do if they are not directed to do it. Okay. There is a missing link somewhere that doesn't seem to fit. Because all of us sitting around the table and all the discussions that have gone on, we have complained about so many things, but we are not linking it to one arrow point. There is an arrow point. Leadership. Leadership. It's only today, unfortunately, that we've heard the president say, PURC, ECG, all you people, please get together and do what you have to do. From the word go, that should have come out.
Oh, okay.
From
so leadership here, you're looking at the president.
I'm looking at those who are supposed to make sure that these entities work. The CEOs of these institutions, the presidency, the ministries, even CSOs. But you see, the thing with CSOs, when CSOs come and tell you, look at this thing, ABCD is likely to happen, they are not listened to. Because there are elements within this scope who are interested in making sure that they too, they can get something out of it. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge where at this material moment, we have come to the last point. Please, as we go forward, let's try our possible best to sit and iron out these things. I would have liked, but I don't think government would do it. I would have liked a situation where we are today, with all the institutions, let's do an audit on all of them to see where everybody stands. This thing that they got PWE to do, let's do it with all of them if we want to move forward. Government might be doing a good thing, but it doesn't look so. It doesn't look so. If two institutions can bicker in public, it means there's no control somewhere. If the president really is now being briefed as if he doesn't know, then it becomes a challenge. Look, the question of Dumso, right now it has been confirmed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And this was being said way back that we have Dumso. Did government want to hear? That's the politics that comes in there, because they have, unfortunately, excuse me for using the word, bastardized another government for going down the same line. So it looks as if we say it, we are also going down the same line. But Ghanaians know. Ghanaians know that that is what it is.
Okay.
So we've got to get to a stage. And for me, governance is the people who voted for you are part of governance. When they see and they feel it and they tell you, oh boy, Mr. Minister, please look at this, oh, please listen. And don't put a cloak over your head and say, we are in power. So that's it. Wouldn't it have been a great idea if, where we are today, putting politics aside, the president now comes and says, look, I'm calling parliament, I'm calling opposition, I'm calling CSOs, I'm calling all the heads of all these institutions. Look, this doomsday thing that seems to plague us every government, let's sit and come to a good conclusion so that it doesn't happen. Because you know why? Parties change.
Exactly.
Parties change all the time.
But the status is
exactly. So if we can sort it, and I'm sure if the president were to do that, and we could sort it and we see things happening in the right direction, who takes the what do you call it?
All right. Let me bring in at this point Lawyer Andre Japamesa here, because when this whole issue started, he was at the ministry. Lawyer, why did the ministry fail to show leadership when this whole issue started?
Let me say good evening to my co-panelists and, of course, to our cherished viewers and listeners, because I understand that it is also on radio.
Joy FM, yes.
I'm not so sure whether the assertion that the ministry did not show leadership is fair. Okay, because there's been extensive engagements within the sector to try and resolve. Of course, I mean, this whole thing started sometime in January, if you like, where we had some issues with fuel. Okay, and of course, directives.
But issues with the cash water flow mechanism preceded 2024.
Yeah, that's been there. Because we've been in government from 2017, right? It's not as if we haven't published a Dumsor timetable before. You recall the Dumsesi that my minister announced. We published a timetable to deal with that situation because we were certain of the deficit that we had. In this case, and the committee was told quite clearly, the PRC showed a graph that pointed to a difficulty in communicating outages because every day it swings depending on the fuel that was available. Hence, you hear the complaint of ECG that the time that they get the notification from Gridco is such that they cannot put that information out. So if you knew that you had a deficit of, say, 400 megawatts for 1 month, then you can publish a timetable for that month for people to then program themselves in a manner that then allows them to, as it were, have foreknowledge. But if you have 10 shortage today, tomorrow you have 40, the next day is 5, the following day is 20, the next day is 60, the next day is 20, then it poses a difficulty as to how you then put out the timetable for people to then know. Because assuming that you live in Ofanko and ECG publishes a timetable for tomorrow, not knowing what really the deficit would be. And so because of that, you fail to attend work tomorrow in Kukumimili or some other place. And lights come on that day. And you would have been shortchanged, okay? And so the committee itself recommended that even if you cannot, the time space is such that you can't put out a timetable. Every day by close of day, at least indicate on your website that there's going to be some outage so people can plan. The bickering issue that Mr. Jantua mentioned, it's unfortunate communication amongst agencies find itself in the public domain. Okay, I'm not sure that anybody has deliberately released a statement condemning one entity or the other. Of course, the regulator has issued sanctions at ECG, and it's within its power and mandate so to do. Okay, and when they issue those sanctions or they issue a regulatory directive, that ought to be made public. But the exchange between Gridco and ECG that found itself in the public domain wasn't intended. And that matter has been dealt with because the Honorable Minister has been on top of that on this matter. The presidency has been fully briefed. There's been several engagements trying to find a lasting solution to the issue. And truth be told, we've had some maintenance issues, some of which have been resolved. Some of it is ongoing. And we had some challenges with fuel, which on a daily basis, depending on what is available, then determines. But going forward, what have we done? And so, for example, this pipeline that has been built to Kumasi was all part of the long-term planning that we had initiated to ensure that the great studies that had been done in 2014, which had indicated the need for us to, for several reasons, including security and grid stability and transmission reliability, get a second or a third power enclave in the Middle Belt, right? Was then actualized through the moving of the plants that were sitting idle from 2021 when the BOT end date occurred, because we had excess capacity within the system. And so the decision to move it, okay, knowing very well that that excess capacity was not going to be the case forever, because your demand is growing on a year-by-year basis, so your excess would necessarily shrink, and so there will be a need for the plant someday. Yeah. So move it to Kumasi, and of course help in building additional generation in that space. And so we signed the AXA agreement, which was condemned. Yet the NRC Akufo-Addo hasn't done anything in the power space, which would come on in Kumasi in the 2028 space. Okay, that allows us to move the gas up north, not reverse it through the WAPCO pipeline for a fee, because GMPC has reserved capacity on the Jansa pipeline. Of course, the discounted gas that was given to them, which was also condemned, facilitate that investment. Okay, it was condemned roundly by all sectors or segments of people who really didn't take time to pay attention to the agreement itself. Because what they had done was that, look, Gensa was building its own pipeline, a 12-inch pipeline, to service its own plants within the mining enclave. Government agency, Ghana Gas, requested it to increase the size to 20 because that enclave in itself was part of the right-of-way that they had intended long-term to build pipelines through. So why build 2 pipelines when you can have 1? How do you pay Gensa? They say, give me a discount on the price of the gas that I'm buying from you so that I can use that discount to defray the investment cost that I made. Of course, there was an option to purchase. If Ghana Gas so had the resources to purchase the pipeline from Gensa, roundly condemned. But they said the useful purpose. Because when GMPC also asked them after the institutional realignment that continue to Kumasi and we'll give you a discount on the additional pipeline that you are doing, which was also condemned, they reserved the capacity on it. Right? I believe 160 million cars per day or something like that, which then allows them to make a saving on the WAPCO reverse flow cost of about 7 million a month to now move gas to Kumasi on the reserved capacity to power plants within the enclave. They will sell that gas and they will make the requisite money to undo whatever discount that they had to give this Gensa to enable them build the pipeline to that space, right?
And would that be lesser than the 7 million WAPCO you pay?
Well, you may have to do the mathematics. I don't have the figures here, but as far as I'm concerned, it made a lot of sense. Okay, we can do the math and see. Question is, did you have the money to do the upfront investment? No. Somebody had the resources, and of course, it's not charity. And so we expect that they would also make a return on that investment. So we can do the analysis, but I'm saying that it was a good decision that was taken. And also now that you are taking away the reverse flow, if the decision is taken, allows you to then increase your flow from Nigeria. Because there's a capacity challenge in Tema, such that if you are flowing from west to east to power plants in Tema as we're doing now, there's a limitation on the gas that you can get from Nigeria to complement. And they are prepared to give us more gas because they have a lot of gas. But if you have a limitation there, then you are constrained. Now that limitation has been removed because of the Middle Belt enclave that we've created to allow us to get more gas to Nigeria. So my own expectation is that this thing will be short-lived, this fuel issue. Of course, there's also conversation about procuring additional. Indeed, when I was at the ministry, I don't know whether I've left.
They're hanging.
I chaired a committee that managed the maintenance schemes within all the gas to power value chain. Okay, so that we can plan to procure liquid fuels if need be and all that. I don't know about personal interests. You know.
When they are contracted, of course, when they are contracting people in the sector have business.
I'm not so sure whether it's personal interest that drives it.
Really?
I'll explain. Because our primary fuel is gas. It's only about 10% of our generation that is dependent on liquid. And of course, gas is cheaper. And so at all times, we prefer to buy gas. It is only when you have a maintenance on the Atuabo gas pipeline or Jubilee upstream is doing some work that will impact gas flow. Or ENI is doing some work because these are two domestic sources of gas. Then you program that within that period, you look for liquid fuel to power the plants. How that constitutes personal interest, I frankly do not know. But I like I said, it's not motivated by personal interest at all.
No, earlier there was
indeed.
No, the reason why.
Let me, as we say in our local parlance, land. Okay. So that indeed, if it was a question of interest, I'm not sure we'll be pursuing vigorously gas from Nigeria, which has been the preference. There's been meetings, one of which I attended with my minister in Abuja, to find ways to get Nigeria to support us, whilst we ourselves explore our upstream resources to derive more gas. And so, yes, there are issues. Of course, the politics will always be at play. But I believe that when The agencies made the committee very frank with them, open, provided them with all the data and information. You could see the graph that PURC had generated from January, February, March that showed the planned outages and the actual outages that were generated on a day-by-day basis from January through March. And coming in, I think I need to correct this issue about 44 outages per day. Well, maybe you are doing a simple extrapolation.
I mean, yeah, cumulatively, you, between January and March, you recorded over 4,000.
Yeah, but you see, when you break two issues. Question of generation is one, or distribution challenges. That's what determines whether the power will go off in a community or not. And I'm saying that only 15% of that figure that you put out, 4,000, is attributable to generation, which is what Gridco manages. The 85 is ECG internal issues.
Okay.
So if the chief executive comes out to say that, look, the problems that we have in the is predominantly transformers, people say is peddling some falsehood, but there's some truth to it. Okay? Kumasi is a peculiar problem. The transmission line that connects power to the ECG transformer is 161 I hear, but they have to move it to 330 kV or something like that. And so, no matter how much generation you have in the system, if that problem is not fixed, you have outages, incessant outages in Kumasi.
But you admit,
that cannot be attributable
but you admit that there's a shortfall in generation.
Oh, no, I've said so. Not a problem at all. But I'm saying that it's only a matter that has been existing over the past few months. Okay. And the work that we are doing that will make this thing very short-lived. I don't want to sit here and give you a time frame, but very soon it will be done and over with.
How soon will that be? You know the data, you see it. How soon will that be?
We have. Yeah.
How soon will that be?
Oh, I'm not in a position to. I said to you that I don't know whether I'm still at the Ministry of Energy or I'm out.
All right.
Because remember, I've not been approved by Parliament.
So you're still hanging.
So yes,
okay.
I'm still hanging.
Now, I wanted to hear your point on the personal interest.
Exactly, because earlier, when DOC started, from a research that was published some time ago, one of the issues was lack of reasonably priced fuel. So, if there are no personal interests, why would this be?
So two things, right? Like I said, our generation is predominantly gas powered. Only 10%. I think it's only the AXA plant. And when we don't have gas, of course, all of them, most plants use dual fuel. Okay. But the only one that depends solely on liquid fuel is the AXA plant, RFO. All the rest of them
the one you signed a deal with for Kumasi?
Well, there's one that is sitting in Tema.
Is the Kumasi one also single?
The Kumasi one hasn't come on stream. Okay. We haven't even started building.
All right, okay.
Okay. So predominantly, we use gas to power our plants. It's only, like I said, it's only when we have maintenance issues in the value chain that we buy liquid fuel to power the other plants. Okay. But the gas itself, Sankofa gas, we all know is very expensive.
Who negotiated it?
Well, you can answer that question. I know it wasn't the MPP administration. We all know. And so that puts the WACOG at a certain level. It's expensive. Of course, liquid fuel is dependent on the daily increases or reductions in the price of petroleum products. Yes. So if it rises, the price will go up. If it drops, consistent with the pricing window that NPA manages, it will come down. Okay, so yes, fuel is expensive. And that cannot be denied, whether it's gas or liquid. But predominantly because we use more gas as opposed to liquid fuel. Okay, so for example, last year, if my recollection is anything to go by, we had 2 maintenance outages for the year. There was an April one, Ghana Gas, and there was a September ENI. Altogether, about 36 days or so. it cost us almost $450 million to buy liquid fuel to power the plants for that period. Gas won't cost you anywhere close to that. Right? So at all times, our preference is gas. Sankofa will pay some $49-50 million per month. That Ministry of Finance pays outside the cash waterfall mechanism. There's a post-foundation Jubilee volumes that we are getting in the region of about $10 million per month. That Ministry of Finance is picking the tab outside the cash waterfall. Because if you put all of that in the cash waterfall mechanism, after paying the IPPs some 43 or so million, now it's gone up to about, I believe, 61 or 62 million. There's nothing to go around for the other players in the value chain. Okay, so the fuel being expensive is true, but I still don't see where that personal interest arises. It's only when we don't have gas that we of necessity. And presently, if we have issues with that, there's a maintenance outtake that is coming on, I believe, in May. And then also in September, we necessarily have to buy liquid to complement the available gas that will be there.
When you were talking, I mean, Mr. Janto mentioned about Sankofa, you said that, well, you can know where it's coming from. Now, from that analysis, isn't your negotiations and the negotiations that you leaders engage in influenced in any way by personal interest?
I don't know.
He won't say it.
No.
You can't say it yet.
I mean, it's not a question of I can't say it here or I can say it here. I frankly don't know. Because there's an investment component that will determine whatever price point, negotiated price point that you reach. But it still doesn't take away the fact that you can make a conclusion whether the price is expensive or not. Your option really is to decide whether you want the investment or not. Okay, but Sankofa is extremely expensive. As a matter of fact.
The negotiation of the Sankofa gas was led not by technocrats, but by politicians.
Okay.
And in the contract, we put in a clause that says, even if cheaper gas becomes available, we bind ourselves to take the expensive gas.
But it was a take-or-pay.
And after that contract, the Italian Prime Minister, for the first time in the history of this country's relationship with Italy, flew to Ghana as if to say thank you. I served on the World Bank Extractive Industries Advisory Board at the time. In one of our meetings, a remark was made that Italy, that's he and I, couldn't have gotten this juicy deal anywhere in the world. This is what we did to ourselves. So you're right, it's expensive, but we inflicted it on ourselves.
Did we not once upon a time have political meters? Was that not personal interest?
The shed meters around the
exactly. So what are we talking about?
Who installed them?
So nobody can tell me that there is no personal interest in here.
Okay.
What we need to do is to be able to cure it.
Okay.
That's the most important thing.
Interesting. But Ms. Mensah, when you were speaking about fuel, gas, you know, Gridco asked government to increase gas supply from Nigeria. Have we had any agreement with the end gas, and how much are we looking at?
Well, VRA is leading that discussion with end gas, of course, with support from the ministry. Like I said, I've been in meetings with my minister in Abuja, speaking to the gas minister in Nigeria to see how they can support us. And I'm not in the position to confirm at this point whether they've reached definitive agreements. But like I said, there were bottlenecks in Tema, okay? And so with the pipeline going to Kumasi now, that bottleneck is going to be taken away for us to receive more volumes from Nigeria. And I'm sure that in a matter of days, that if it hasn't already been concluded, it would be done.
Okay.
Once the minister is here, let me ask a question.
Okay.
There are associated and non-associated fields. And probably because of this whole thing about renewables, associated fields might be difficult to drill. Between the time of this government being in place, not one exploration have we done. Why don't we go in there and look at, let's find non-associated fields and start drilling associated fields so that we get our own gas? All this gas that we are buying, it is money we don't have. Because when you look at all that we are discussing, where's the end point? Finance.
Yes.
That's where the end point is. So even if we're going to look at this thing, we can break it down. Where is the finance going to come from? That's the issue that we should try and answer.
All right, interesting.
Which is the reason? You better more than I know where the finance in upstream exploration comes from. You.
But gas is a transition fuel.
Of course.
That's why I situated it in non-associated fields.
I don't have a problem. But you still have to do exploration. You still have to invest in drilling to bring out the gas.
Yes.
And
it's a transition fuel, right?
It's a question of transition fuel. For me, it doesn't play in this.
But it's not something
we need the investment. We need the gas. But you need the gas.
It's the same process you go through
to explore oil. Same.
And the same for oil.
Okay.
For me, the worry is that our fields, the 3 fields, seems to be plateauing. Okay. If you look at the data for the last 3 years,
that's the point I'm making.
It's been declining.
So we need to explore.
If we don't add to the reserve, then we have a problem.
Okay. But I agree with you. But of course, when we came, we've added to the reserve. You say it's not a new field, but Jubilee Southeast was a new development that has added 30,000 barrels to our reserves. Of course, Pecan, we all expect it to come on stream very, very soon.
Ultra deep.
We've given approvals for ENI to explore Akoma and Eban. Okay? We are having discussions with Jubilee partners on infrastructure-led exploration within the neighboring fields. And all these things are happening.
Okay.
So it cannot be the case that we haven't done anything in the past period.
We've gotten ENI to prioritize investments in Côte d'Ivoire over Ghana. And the chief executive of ENI has relocated from the country because he's been sought after for allegedly contempt of court and all that.
Yeah.
So they are channeling most of their investments into the Côte d'Ivoire. Yeah. Why don't you give attention and resolve this matter with ENI once and for all?
Where are we on that case?
We're expecting the outcome of the arbitration sometime in June, July. You see, I agree. And over the period that I've been at the Ministry of Energy, I've had extensive engagements, or I've been involved in conversations with ENI to try and settle the issue between themselves and Springfield. Okay.
That's another one.
These are
all right. So
it's a fuel.
local company.
This issue will not be short-lived if we don't resolve the fuel dimension of it sustainably.
Yes. And I agree. But the point is this. The point is this. These are 2 private right owners. 2 private. ENI and Springfield. There's a limit to what you are the resource owner, can do. It's a question of law, right? So it seems to me that every time that I hear the talk about ENI Springfield, the sense I get is, but why don't you allow ENI to have its way? Because that's exactly what they want. Please, with respect.
I'm agreeing with you. It shouldn't be.
Precisely.
It shouldn't be.
So that's exactly what the government has sought to do. That look.
Shouldn't be.
Okay.
We would help you guys to resolve your dispute, but it cannot be to the detriment of one party or the other against the other.
Okay.
I agree.
So yes, let it play out. And we can't be blamed for letting the due process play out.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Now, even if we get Springfield and all of them to come on board, we still need to pay for the gas they produce, right?
Certainly.
And that's where I come to Mr. Michael Yantichi.
But we would be getting the gas that fire the turbines.
Okay. When we pay.
We'll find the money we have to find the money to pay.
Okay.
It's not as simple.
But let me go.
We are not paying for Jubilee gas, even though we are supposed to pay. We are not able to pay.
Yeah, so we owe them. And I know Talo has been complaining.
The money.
Now, let me bring in Mr. Yantichi here because, I mean, all the discussion we are having, everybody says it's about money. So when the VRA produces power, grid consensus to ECG, and ECG sells it, ECG needs to generate the money. But everybody says ECG is not able to collect it. Why are you not able to collect monies for power you sell to customers?
Well, I think we can't just isolate the issue and just say it's all ECG. It's a whole value chain.
Okay.
And sometimes we have this fixation that everything, ECG is the weaker link. ECG is the weaker link. Are we really looking at the role and the interconnectedness of the other actors? PURC is there supposed to be the referee. Gridco, VRA. We are talking in the situation where we have scarce resources to utilize. I think Mr. Jantua mentioned it earlier. Are we maximizing the use of even the gas that we have? Are we applying it to the plants that will give us maximum from the little that we have? And all these have cost implications. ECG is at the tail end. The power that Gridco is giving to ECG, over the month, ECG generates bills for IPPs. Is there a transparent arrangement for ECG to know that this bill I'm paying over this month is indeed equivalent to the power that has been allocated to me?
Why there's no way that you're able to tell that?
The system operator is the one who is to provide that information.
Okay.
But periodically, ECG doesn't get that information. Have we heard anything from PURC about this? So whether ECG is paying more or is paying less, it's also an issue. So there is the need for some transparency to be established also among these active players. Gridco, ECG, VRA. We are talking about...
But this is interesting. So in every month when you are paying the IPPs, you are saying that you generate invoices for them and you pay. You are not able to tell whether you are paying for the right amount of power given to you to sell.
Because Gridco is not providing that information.
Wow. So how are you then able to pay them? So you determine that today I'm giving 10 million or 20 million just like that to them or what?
So that's why there's a standing arrangement with the IPPs. So periodically something is being paid. But the information must be made available. And PURC has a key role to ensure that this information is made available to ECG. Then you come to even collecting the monies. You know, ECG puts in a lot of effort, and everybody who wants to be objective can attest that for the past almost 2 years, the effort has been made to enhance the revenue. It comes with a cost. Who is paying that cost? Is ECG alone able to bear all the cost? Go to the distribution charge, compare it previously and now. Is it at the same level that will enable ECG to effectively carry out its mandate? Then there are also this subtle thing being played out between Gridco and VRA, where because of some loophole in the law, some key customers of ECG are being poached. And these were customers who could pay easily and contribute towards the cash waterfall. But ECG is losing these customers. Gridco, together with VRA, is giving them some form of rebates. So whatever was going to come from these customers, which will have increased the cash waterfall, is being lost. But this is going on. Not very long, B5 has been taken away from ECG. And it was a major customer. And collection from such customers doesn't involve a lot of effort. As you lose some of these key customers, now you have to spend more to be able to get the required revenue to go into the cash waterfall. Look at the recent interventions that this new management brought in. It's all cost. But it's being made it to appear as if that, oh, it's ECG alone that should bear all the related expenses.
But it's not because you also abandoned the cash waterfall mechanism, such that you are being accused that when you even collect, you don't pay into the cash waterfall mechanism. So once VRA, Gridco are all suffering, they decide that let's go after your customers who pay so that they can also survive.
So again, that comes into the whole issue of the transparency and the role that PURC also ought to play to ensure that there is this fair arrangement in the system. ECG cannot be made to be the only one because it's the one that have direct interface with the customers to bear all the brunt. If there are other things that the regulator also need to ensure that upstream is streamlined and is assisting ECG in its work, that should be done. Now you are talking about the cash waterfall, and everybody is asking, oh, ECG was not paying or complying. Yes, if there is proper communication between the regulator and ECG and other players, before you introduce the single account system and ask that all money should go into one account, has anybody asked whether there were certain accounts that has some lien in relation to the revenues that were coming? Because ECG had also taken some facilities which it had to pay. And some of these facilities were collateralized with some of the revenue. Now, it's also a contract. The banks would definitely not just pass all the money through and will not take their due.
But I thought this matter has been resolved.
When?
It's one of the engagements that have taken place in the past month.
Past month?
Of course.
So it's resolved?
As far as I'm concerned, it's resolved. So I don't see why you should.
No, has the loans been paid off that you say is resolved?
Okay.
If the loans are still existing, how is it resolved? Because these are facilities, not short term. So I don't know what you are as the sector minister, perhaps you have some information I don't. But if the facilities are there and they are not paid off, and now all the monies are being channeled into the single account, then even coming to the non-compliance with the cash waterfall, if you go back, the erratic power we are experiencing from the beginning of the year had become more severe.
Okay.
Why? Because before or during the last quarter, ECG was buying some fuel based on instructions from the ministry.
Okay.
And so that supported the system in a way. Since January, ECG hasn't bought any fuel. And that's the consequences we are all experiencing.
How much fuel were you buying in a month?
Well, the instructions were coming from Ministry of Finance, so I don't have the figures offhand to mention. And now some of those monies which were supposed to have gone into the tier 2 to pay some of the SOEs were used to buy this fuel, and Ministry of Finance will have to refund before these payments are made. They haven't been refunded.
Okay, interesting.
So there are a whole lot that all the actors need to really sit and engage and do away with this suspicion which is creeping into all the relationships. And everybody is suspecting somebody is hiding this, somebody is hiding this. But if we are not careful and we are so fixated a time is coming, if we are not very careful, we are going to virtually put fetters on the operations of ECG.
Okay.
And then it's going to affect the whole of the cash waterfall system.
But Kojo, who gave...
Before I come in here, sorry, let me acknowledge that we've been joined via Zoom by the ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament, John Abdullahi Jinapo. He joins us via Zoom here. We also have Dr. Ni Dakwa Sante, who is former PRC Commissioner, also joining us via Zoom. And we still have the Chairman of the Mines and Energy Committee, Honorable Samuel Atacha, with us. You wanted to make a quick point?
I wanted to find out who gave the instruction to ECG to buy fuel.
Is that Ministry of Finance?
Yes. Is that their responsibility? Is that what ECG does? Are they the ones to buy fuel? And if it's Ministry of Finance, which minister gave that instruction? Because if for nothing at all, the money should have come from Ministry of Finance if they wanted ECG to purchase.
Okay, so what you're saying in fact is that Ministry of Finance should not be ordering ECG to buy fuel.
Exactly.
But Mr. Yantichi, which companies were benefiting from this fuel? Because we have applicable here, so you can confirm or deny. Which companies were benefiting from the fuel you're buying?
Oh, the fuel definitely still go to the IPPs for the... I cannot specify specifically which of the plants, but these fuel were purchased.
Okay.
Unless somebody is repudiating that there was no procurement.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So he can confirm because he's the chamber. But again, how many of your customers, apart from B5, has been taken away from you?
Oh, for now, on top of my head, I remember the B5, and then also some time ago, some of the mines were also taken away. And
Okay.
I think there was one steel plant which is also more or less being targeted.
Okay.
I don't know whether...
There were some discussions also with Royal Senchi Hotel.
Yes.
Yes.
And when they're taking over...
The even approaches were even made to send you.
Okay.
And so all these are...
Okay.
You see, let's be forthright with some of these things. You know that the regulations allow customers within a certain consumption bracket to apply to be licensed to buy power directly.
Berkeley, yes.
Yes.
It's been in the mining
from VR.
Mining sector.
Okay, so, and truth be told, yes, I empathize with ECG because if you have a customer that you can just make a phone call to their finance director and they send you a check, as opposed to chasing customers in, say, Ashaman or even Committee 8 or whatever, then it's easy and you will want that customer. But they complain about reliability of power from you as basis for why they want to leave. In most cases. That if you cannot assure them, they have a plant that they expect to run 24 hours and you are not giving them the power to enable them to run 24 hours. Thus, they move. I've seen letters from Centio requesting for the ministry's support to go directly to VRA to go and buy power. Gridco doesn't generate power, so it can't sell power. It is only a transmission company. If you ask him to move a line to a specific location, that's what he does and charges you for the transmission. So please, some of these things.
I'm coming. Let me ask you this question, Mr. Mensah. Why is it that companies will have reliable or say stable power from a supply from VRA and not from ECG? Because isn't it the same system they all operate on?
I just mentioned to you that the outages numbers, right? 85% of it is ECG problem.
Okay.
It's not Gridco. It's not the generation problem. That's only about 15% per data that I have seen. So you see clearly that if you are relying on ECG system for a certain kind of industry that requires power 24 hours, tendency for you to want to go, especially if you are a bulk consumer, to go directly to get from the generator is high.
Oh, interesting. Look, you wanted to ask.
It's not a fair arrangement. You see, we have ECG that goes after its debtors and sends caution that, look, I'm going to cut hospitals, prisons, schools, and we all cry out. No, you can't do that. You can do that. And then those companies, the reliable, the assured revenues, we take it away from them.
But you see,
how do we expect them to be able to raise the revenue, to make the needed investments in the operations to improve the service?
Mr. Mantiao,
this is a question we must answer.
No, I don't have a problem. We'll deal with it. You see, in fact, the bulk consumption threshold was actually lower. A minister directed Energy Commission to increase it.
Okay.
So that you limit the
number of people
who have the ability to leave. So that's been dealt with. Unless, of course, you're saying that take it away completely.
No,
conversation
it
we can have.
Review.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm saying that has been done. But you see, I empathize with ECG, 100%. No issues at all. And we need to support them to enable them collect more. But it doesn't matter whether you are a 50 CD consumer or 2,000 or 2 million CD consumer. Everybody has to pay. And they have to go and collect the money from everybody who has to pay.
No, but some of these cases are very sensitive.
Because if you have the commercial losses alone,
would you support these hospitals?
See, no, we don't support it.
Yeah.
Because there's an arrangement and they don't have to cut hospitals.
Who pays for the hospitals?
Ministry of Finance.
And are they
schools, of course, they do
up to date?
Ask them. They've done a reconciliation risk every end of year.
And
they do a reconciliation and pay them.
ECG bought for the country?
Which fuel? I'm not aware of this fuel that he says.
No, you
Ministry of, no, I'm coming. Look, very recently there was a reconciliation that was done. Right. That Ministry of Finance transferred almost 250 million CDs to ECG for bills for these institutions.
Over what period?
Okay, no, of course. They may be outstanding. And you have to follow up to get your bills paid, whether it's from Ministry of Finance or from any entity. I don't have a problem at all. But to suggest that nobody cares when they take hospitals out, it's not the case because they are not supposed to do that. And we've indicated that to them. I've been in meetings where they've been told quite categorically that because Ministry of Finance pays for these bills, go to Ministry of Finance for your money and don't cut hospitals, schools, and other places. Okay. That's very clear. Clear.
So they go to Ministry of Finance, they don't get the money. What do they do?
But they have, of course, Ministry of Finance pays a lot of bills on behalf of ECG. Indeed, they do. Okay.
On behalf of ECG
on behalf of ECG.
Right.
Indeed, that's exactly what they do. Full cost. You see, almost 70 million.
We need to take another look at the financing.
I don't have a problem.
I don't think we've been very prudent with the financing of ECG. Okay. We have not been prudent at all. But even the management of the e-levy, which is meant to deal with some of the debts in the sector, has been shabby. There have been instances when monies have been diverted for other purposes. And so we need to critically look at it. We are managing ECG financing like a chop bar type of accounting.
No, that's not
the best.
No, you see, with respect, who is managing ECG finance? ECG finances are managed by ECG.
I'm talking about financing of the ECG.
I'm coming.
Their own money.
ECG is a limited liability company.
Right.
Okay. Yes, they provide a social service.
Right.
No issue.
Right.
And when government owes them bills, you can suggest that pay timeously. I don't have a problem, but they pay.
There is no timeously.
I don't have a, no, I'm saying that.
It's not timeously.
Of course, you can.
And it has impact.
You can advocate. I pay them monthly. And they have to be able to have a conversation with the Ministry of Finance to enable them to do that. But I'm saying that to suggest that hospitals are cut and nobody cares cannot be accurate because these bills are taken by the exchequer and they pay ECG.
Okay. Could you let me ask just a simple question?
Okay.
Very simple one. We pay in our electric bills street lighting. What happens to that money? Why aren't there street lights on the roads?
That question would go to...
You try driving at night or early in the morning with no markings on the roads. It kills people. Why aren't we paying? Why aren't we getting the street lights when we pay for it? It is a microcosm of the problem.
That is the responsibility of the assembly.
Whatever the case is, whatever the case is, ECG collects it. What happens to it? Do they take it to the assemblies? And if they take it to the assemblies, what is the money used for?
Okay.
It's financing.
ECG will collect it. Well, hold on. ECG will collect it, not to provide the street lights, but to pay for the street light bills. That the power that they put in the street lights. Because the street lights, public lighting, somebody has to pay for it.
There's no street lighting on the roads. What are they paying for?
Okay, all right. Thank you, gentlemen. Let me bring in Apetobo, because, I mean, Mr. Yanteji was talking about some fuel they bought and what have you, and then payment as well. These guys, the independent power generators, are the center of this. First of all, confirm for us. We're receiving some fuel from ECG.
Thank you very much. We've been receiving fuel from them.
Okay.
That is true. Those of us that can run on liquid fuel, we take fuel from them.
Okay. And that's on a regular basis?
As and when the need arises, like Honorable Minister said, the primary fuel for most of our plants are natural gas. It's natural gas. So anytime they foresee shortage or problem with supply of gas, they make arrangement for LCO.
Okay.
So for some time now, we've been receiving that from ECG.
ECG. Yeah. Okay. All right. What about payment through the cash waterfall mechanism to you, the IPPs? Because last year you threatened to shut down your plants because you were not being paid.
Yeah, at the time that we came to that decision, practically the cash waterfall wasn't working.
Okay.
It will interest you to know that the committee exists. We don't know what goes in there. All that we receive is an alert of payment. We have actually complained, written several letters to government to give us opportunity to serve on the cash waterfall committee to know what actually comes in and what is being shared. But that has been denied. Okay. So we felt something strange is happening somewhere. The flow is not coming. There was a time it will surprise you to learn that we have, some companies have received 200,000 Ghana cedis as payments for power plants. 700,000 Ghana cedis. Very low, you cannot do anything with it. So we felt that we cannot continue with this. That was when we took a decision that come the end of May, we're going to withdraw our services to ensure that we receive payment for our services before.
May 2023.
That's 2023.
This is historic.
Yeah.
Before somebody.
Exactly. I was going to. Anyway, but he also said that they are also not able to tell whether they are paying you for the right amount of power you supply them. So it's a problem. And you're also saying that that's also a problem for you. But you don't know how much exactly you're being paid for.
That can be a problem to them because for us, we have accurate records of what we have generated and what we have delivered to them. So for us, we use our data to bill them monthly. Okay. So if they are not able to reconcile what they are receiving from GRIDCO, that is another matter. But for us, our records are accurate. We do the metering with their supervision, GRIDCO's supervision, so they know what we generated and what has been delivered.
So for your members, how much are you owed now as we speak?
As we speak, off-head, I cannot give a figure yet because there are some discussion or reconciliations going on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I cannot speak to a specific figure.
But is it substantial?
Definitely.
In the region
because
of
what was before the decision to shut down is largely unsolved. Going forward to there is still an accumulation going. That is also another matter. So it's still in the region of $1 billion.
In the region of $1 billion.
Yes.
Okay. Now last year, whilst this whole discussion came up, ECG promised to remain current. Are they still current with their payments?
Yeah, they are doing their bit as we speak. They are covering up to about 70% of the current invoices.
Okay.
That is when we do not consider the fuel cost. But when we consider the fuel cost until they are paid, they are doing about 30% the reverse.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting. And that's why the debt is still around $1 billion. Anyway, let me bring in at this point in time the ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee. I mean, he is ranking on the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. So let me bring him in. Mr. Jinapo, thanks for joining us here. You've listened to all the discussion, especially the banter between Mr. Yantechi, Lawyer Mesa, and then Dr. Mantel. What do you make of what really is happening in the sector? I mean, we've heard of all the issues that have come up today. You also have a lot of fact on what's happening in the sector. Having listened to what they've said here tonight and what you know, what's really at play?
Thank you very much. I've been following. I've traveled, so We are here to meet the IMF, and the key issue, as far as the IMF is concerned, is the energy sector. IPP is a little over 1 billion. Fuel-related expenditure, almost 800 million. So today, if you were to flush out the energy sector debts and bring the books to a healthy path, you will need about $1.8 billion in order to deal with energy sector related debts. And so that's a colossal amount. And almost every investor you meet, their concern is how is Ghana going to deal with the hydra-headed problem of energy sector related issues. First of all, I think that there's been a lot of policy inconsistency. First, why would the Minister of Finance write to ECG without passing it through the Ministry of Energy, authorizing ECG to procure fuel? ECG is not a generation company. ECG is a distribution company. You need somebody with knowledge in the generation sector to determine the spec of fuel that you are buying, who has the track record, so the person can negotiate for better terms. So why is ECG being asked to buy fuel? That's very awkward. And why is the minister doing so without recourse to the cash waterfall mechanism in terms of the committee that administers the cash waterfall? That's one. Another serious problem is that the ministry itself, and you see, it's not about what Honorable Japa says. At this moment, what we depend on is official document put out by the PURC. Since August, the ministry has not paid anything to ECG in respect of these hospitals that we are talking about. Hospitals, police service, and all that. And if you read the report from PURC, you can confirm, it stated explicitly that since August, the Ministry of Finance has failed to pay that money. And now you're looking at about 1.6 billion. That's also some outstanding debt. Then worrying is even the current bills. We were told that ECG was staying current, and Honorable Atachia is right here. He chairs the committee. When we interrogated, it turns out that ECG has rather committed to pay 70% of the current bills, accumulate the 30%, promising the IPPs that it should be paid somewhere in 2026. If you look at their cash flows clearly, they cannot pay that money. And so even the confidence is not there. Then gas bills, gas that is supplied and consumed, not capacity charge gas. Now the gas is not even adequate for the thermal plants. So we are no more in an era of capacity charges. If you read the PIAC report, and Dr. Stimantiao has done a lot of work there, so he can check and confirm. Over 600 million of raw commodity gas, raw, not processed gas. At that time, Jubilee gas was foundation gas. It was free. Today, that gas is not free. And so the bill is compounding at an astronomical pace. Now the solutions. One, let's face it, the tariff structure is not cost reflective. That's a fact. If you look at where the exchange rate was, and bearing in mind that in the energy sector, about 80% of the recurrent expenditure is dollar denominated. And you look at whether based on political reasons or whatever, why the exchange rate is depreciating and cost is increasing, we're told that some category had a reduction of 6%. And so the bills are compounding and it's threatening the sector. Look, my worry is that if we continue on this trajectory, in 1 year time, the sector will collapse. And that will have a big weight on the economy. So I think that we should look at the tariff structure. That is one.
Okay.
Two is that I'm so convinced that ECG alone cannot efficiently collect the monies. And we should relook the PDA structure and see whether we can get some private sector participation in terms of the collection. Because at committee, they indicated that they collect 70% of the amount. We asked for that amount, and that 70% is about 1.2 billion. So when you find the 30% of the global figure, it means that over 500 million cedis every month is not collected. 500 million every month times 12 takes you to somewhere around 6 billion cedis. That's a colossal amount. So I think that we need to look at ECG and its collection, not necessarily do a full privatization, but if we can have some private sector participation, especially with the collection, and then get Ministry of Finance in particular, not to run the energy sector as if it is an appendage of the Ministry of Finance, get the Ministry of Energy to take full charge and empower PURC and the Cash Waterfall Committee to ensure that the monies are lodged in one consolidated single treasury. So that even if ECG is taking facilities, that committee can engage the banks and ensure that part of ECG's allocation is used to deal with that liability. When we do that, we would see some level of reduction. Because now the losses has risen to about 30%. No industry, no electricity company in the world can survive with 30% losses. It's not done anywhere. But I'm sure if we can deal with the political side and allow some autonomy and some level of responsibility and accountability, we can reduce some of these losses.
Interesting. Interesting you make the point about privatization, because yesterday Asanteni also made the same point at the commissioning of that plan. Let me bring in the chairman of the committee, Honorable Samuel Atacha. He's been very patient with us on Zoom. Honorable, what do you make of this whole idea of privatizing? Now, your ranking says we should look at taking a real look at the PDS structure to look at whether we can privatize an aspect of it. The Otunfo says we should privatize all players in the energy sector. What do you make of all of these proposals as to how we can really deal with the issues confronting the sector going forward? Chair, kindly unmute so we can follow what you're telling us. So we're on with...
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes.
Yes. There is the preponderance of international data, which is showing that the private sector indeed is the engine of growth, and they drive the economies of some of these advanced countries so well. They generate good results. So I wouldn't want to sort of go against the general thinking that sometimes the states, if you like, unholy hope on some of these sectors have come about, has brought about some of the problems we have. Look at the monopoly of, what's it called, British Airways to Heathrow. We used to have Ghana Airways, and that helped. It was competitive, and it collapsed. So the overlord of the Asantes has made a very, very powerful point that there's necessity to bring it into the hands of the private sector so that they'll be able to do it well. I can see that as a very powerful option in the future. But in the meantime, I agree with Rankin that something should be done about the collection of revenues by ECG, because essentially that's where you find a vicious cycle. Under collection, poor money available to the IPPs, and all over. And they will not be able to find what they need to generate optimum capacity. And then they bring to you, what is not very small, and then you have the politics. But what has become a pain for me right now, listening to the gentleman called, I don't know whether it's Dr. Nyantechi.
Oh, Mr. Nyantechi.
He makes a point. Yes, it makes a very sad point that ECG is trying to say that we are not aware whether the invoices we settle are validated. Oh my God, I couldn't believe that is true. Now, where is this arrangement in which you are paying for the unknown? And that is very frightening. So if PRC and the rest of them who are doing the technical regulation, are not looking at this dimension of the whole arrangement, it creates a big problem. Because in the world, every service supply should be properly involved. Because if we are not careful, then somebody is trying to use, a sieve to gather water. So I'm very, very much concerned. But let me also chip in what has been said about the capital outlay. The capital outlay is huge, and the debt overhang is huge. The only thing my good brother didn't say is that these are, if you like, Asian troubles. If you pay regard to the State of the Nation address, one of the things that the president actually said is that the renegotiations of the debt in the energy sector is going to give us a saving in the neighborhood of about 9.1 billion. So,
that's very problematic, Chairman. That statement is very, very problematic. I deliberately avoided the politics.
Well,
I just wish we don't get there. I mean, I've looked at that, and I'm asking the president, where did he get that figure from?
Well, I have not seen any thing saying otherwise, because he gave the breakdown, and because of time constraint, I'm unable to rate page 17 of the State of the Nation address. It's all there, but.
Oh, fortunately, we've lost Chairman. But we'll still get Chairman back on the line, and then also get Mr. John Jinapoi still with us on the line. But let me come in studio and find out what. Yeah. So Mr. Jinapoi, you disagree with the Chairman there on what the president said. Why do you disagree?
Because he chaired the committee when the IPPs appeared before us, and the IPPs even told us right there that they haven't signed off anything. Chairman chaired that committee, and we agreed that until you sign off an agreement with somebody, you cannot rush to come and tell us that you've made savings. You haven't even signed the agreement. How do you talk about savings? Then this issue of recurrent expenditure, it came up at committee that ECG was paying only 70%, and that the 30% would accumulate, and that 2026 somehow, some way, you make that bullet payment. And so, yes, the president made a political statement. I think that we are focusing on how to address this challenge. I didn't want to deal with that. When we have a political discussion where Mr. Steve Mantia and are not there, maybe we, the politicians, are engaged in this, we can interrogate that. Other than that, we are tempted to then move into a political arena. But Chairman will confirm that at the committee, the IPPs did indicate that they have not even signed the negotiations. And we said, until you sign the negotiation and agree, the current agreement persists. But lastly, the debt that I'm talking about, Chairman, you may be right. There may be some legacy debt. And I have looked at the ESLA PLC. Dr. Simantio talked about it. 9.7 billion. You ring fence 6 billion. The remaining 4 billion has compounded. And when I did my calculation, currently that should be about 8 billion. When you add the 6 billion, that should take you to about 14 billion legacy debt. That has moved from 9 billion to 14 billion because you are not using ESLA properly, and we can deal with that. But I'm talking of current debt.
Okay.
Raw gas supplied and consumed, almost $800 million. That's a huge amount. You consume the gas, you generate power, people consume, they pay, and yet you have an outstanding debt. Then the very last one, what government did was that government and IPPs are there.
The $800 million.
While we were being told that the energy sector debt was being paid, what government rather did was to convert the debt into a bond. And the chamber is there. Now, under the IMF agreement, because of the debt sustainability analysis, the IPPs are being told to take a haircut. And they've dug their heels. They say they are not ready for that haircut. So, in principle, even though government absorbed the liability, payment effectively hasn't been made, and it's still a liability. I think we should be careful drawing some of these conclusions, because it can be very problematic.
Let me clarify.
Oh, okay. Well, I wanted to ask a question, but Lomesa wants to make some clarification.
Yeah. I don't know where this 800 million
Minister,
raw gas debt that you're making reference to.
Let me just open the PIAC report whilst you talk. I'll quote the page for you.
Okay, because
I'll open the PIAC report and quote the page.
I know that Tallow is owed, right, post-foundation, when we were supposed to start paying for the gas, is owed in the region of about 60 million. or 70 million.
$60 million.
Dollars.
For how many months? Or
years? I'll pull it out. You continue.
Oh yes, sure. Pull it up. That's how much I know Tallow is owed. E&I is not owed that much. Of course, there's some security arrangement.
There's the backup gas arrangement.
Yes.
So you can always go back and take it.
This 800 is strange to me.
So we don't owe E&I.
We owe
no,
E&I.
You see, with E&I, we have an arrangement. We can
there's
always
a security arrangement standby letter of credit arrangement that then swings back and forth.
Okay.
Payments are made, it reduces, so this 800 million, I haven't heard the figure.
Okay.
But
he says he's opening his report.
And let's see.
But let me bring you in. There was a banter between the ranking and the chair about what the president put out in terms of some sort of negotiation with you, the IPPs. What's the status of that?
The fact is we have had a series of engagements. But at the end of every engagement, there's supposed to be a concluding point. To make this document useful and to call it a conclusive arrangement, we need to sign off. Until it is signed off, we cannot say that we have reached there. But let me confirm that we have very peaceful engagements on the issues concerned.
Okay. So almost sort of, there's been a verbal agreement between the two parties.
Yes, impliedly.
Okay.
But what is stopping the signing?
Okay.
That I cannot tell because...
But you're the CEO of the chamber.
What I mean is, on our part, we are ready to sign off.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
And who isn't ready to sign? Government?
Oh,
is that what the problem is?
I don't think so, because I was involved.
Yes, you were involved. So
I was involved.
Let's know.
Yeah. I was involved in practically all the negotiations, the meetings that we held with all the IPPs. I don't know whether they want to conclude with car power before we sign all of them.
This is government.
Okay.
Yes, I need to confirm. But I know that 4 IPPs, we have actually concluded the negotiations. Exchange of documents have gone, drafts have gone back and forth. But the actual signing hasn't been done. The only one that is outstanding is car power. That's the one that there's still some talking going on as we speak. Okay. But I need to confirm whether the thinking is, let's finish all of it before we sign, or that it will be useful to sign each one of them as and when we come.
Okay.
But that's okay.
But it would have been a good idea if, as it's finished, it's being signed, so that there's no discrepancies. Because if for nothing at all, some of the debt we haven't paid is going to accumulate. Yeah. And that's where the challenge is.
So there's a figure that has been ring-fenced. Okay. I think it's in the region of about 1.6, 1.7 billion. Right? As of a certain cutoff date. The plan is that going forward, ECG will pay 70% or so of the invoices. And then the accumulation will be deferred. Okay, the extra will be deferred till 2027, 2028 or so. And then that would also be paid for. Some discussion on extension of some PPAs. I mean, there's a lot of work has gone into it, and I'm sure that.
So maybe
I don't know. I'd have to confer with the chairman, who now is the Minister for Finance, because it was at the time it was Minister of State. Whether his view is that let's finish with all the negotiations before we sign up. But term sheets have been exchanged. We have agreed. So I fail to see how.
You also made the point that ECG will pay some 70%. Have we identified where that ECG money is coming from?
Yeah, but that's already started paying.
Is it coming from the cash waterfall?
Yes,
it's coming from the cash waterfall. So if it's coming from the cash waterfall, we should make sure that collections are 100%. Because you cannot afford the cash waterfall to go into debt and then they are not paid. See, it creates a problem.
I'm glad that we're not doing the politicking. Because it helps. And I agree with JJ. And these are conversations that we're having with respect of the privatization or some private sector participation in the billing and collection. Discussions are far advanced. Of course, typically you will have the resistance from our friends in ECG. But it's something that I believe will help they themselves. Okay? And so we've tasked them to put in boundary meters as a first step that they are working on. Of course, their digitalization program that they're rolling out to is also helping with the collections. Okay? So when they are able to put the boundary meters in all their the operational district and know the volume of power that is going in every district, then you can introduce private sector people to bill and collect for the power that is coming into that enclave. So it's work that is ongoing. And I believe that in the fullness of time, because 30% losses
is high.
Definitely not sustainable.
So you're working towards taking ECG out of the collection of revenue?
They have to.
Okay.
They have to. We have to have private sector injection. Of course, people are prepared to invest in providing meters and all that prepaid, which they need $500 million to roll out across the country as they've indicated. Of course, that money is not available. Okay, and so if you have people who are the capacity to then invest in putting the meters across the operational district that they give them to manage, then ECG is certain of the revenue coming in to enable them pay for the power that they buy from the IPPs and everybody else within the value chain.
A private contractor goes to collect and pay.
And it's something that they have already piloted in some, I believe, in Ashanti region, right?
No, even in Accra.
Okay.
BXC.
No, SBU
but you see,
issue.
Okay, I want Mr. Yantichi to react first. Yes.
The BXC, but
No, but you see, sometimes you need to be a bit careful when we are talking about this whole issue about private sector participation.
Yes, it's true.
I
agree.
It's true.
Look, currently there is a lot of private sector activity involved in what ECG is doing. And sometimes you make it appear that, people are sitting somewhere ready to just bring the money. Look, there is this project ECG has initiated, the LRP, where meter manufacturers are supposed to supply meters and then recoup their returns over time. Agreements have been signed with a number of meter companies.
Local meter companies. Local. Yes.
But it's not so simplistic that as if we make it like the moment you mention private sector participation, then all the problems are resolved.
No, but of course, if it was that simple, it would have been implemented long ago. So that's why I said that it's still work in progress.
Yeah, but you see,
you have to have.
I challenge you
to
show me one instance where this type of privatization has worked in this country.
Because
just one.
Which type of privatization?
The type of the management contract type of arrangement, bringing a sole source or through a competitive process, bringing a strategic investor to perform whatever function in this country. And I will give you examples. At the time when Ghana Airways was at the brink of collapse, we brought in Speedwing, led by one Rex Lexat, to come and turn the fortunes around. At the time they were leaving, they left us with more debt than they inherited. I'll give another example. Aqua Vitens Rand, who brought them to salvage Ghana Water. They created more mess than they met. So I just challenge you to give me one example where those type of private sector participation has worked.
You
see, we should also be mindful of the fact that whoever comes in as a private sector entity, will not be here forever.
But earlier, one of you mentioned that the PDS arrangement sort of brought some efficiency in the operations of the ECG.
Let me tell you what. There was some temporary efficiency, which for me speaks to the fact that with proper management arrangements and lack of removal of government's interference in the affairs of the community, we can make progress. Ghanaians are capable when government takes its hands off. And I see no reason why government should be appointing the MDs of state-owned enterprises. They must go through a competitive process through the public sector Public Services Commission and get appointed and given contracts, and without government interference, see if they cannot deliver.
But that was the major factor that enabled within that short period PDS to perform.
But there was no government.
I'm coming to all of you. Let me ask this question, Mr. Yantichi. Now, do you accept a private investor should be introduced to strip you guys off your billing and collection of revenue based on the sort of argument that we've had. 24 says, look, because of the experience, let private sector come. The chairman has also alluded to that fact. Would you accept that that responsibility of yours be stripped off from you and given to private sector?
No, I'm saying that currently there is some level of private sector participation. But the solution is not just the sweeping privatization that we are talking about. The major problem for the sector that some of us see is not just about inefficiency among the organization, but bottlenecks which to about 80% is due to political interest.
Well, but Mr. Antechi, this is quite specific. We've all said that you fail to collect exactly how much you sell. So this one says, let me bring in someone to just bail and collect revenue. It's not to take the entire thing. So I'm asking you, will you accept that you are stripped of that particular one and give it to a private sector?
Will the private sector operate on the same terms ECG is operating? That is the big question we have to ask.
Did PDS operate on the same terms?
Exactly.
No,
exactly.
No. So it's back to you.
They didn't. Let me tell you what. In the year before PDS came in, ECG had sought for tariff increases. It was denied them. In the year PDS came in, it was approved for them.
Okay.
You see, any company that comes in as a private company have personal interest and no personal friends. That's the first point of call. And if it's foreign, remember there's a question of capital flight to in there. Are you trying to tell me when ECG started shutting down people who owed them, they weren't doing their work? Weren't they told to stop in some areas? That's where the political influence comes in. Okay. Strip the politics out of it. Give ECG the chance to do what they have to do. If they go to civil aviation, you haven't paid, they close you. If they go here, they close you. Yes, hospitals probably not, schools probably not. But there are major government companies in this country who haven't paid.
Okay.
I think ECG can collect. And you're trying to tell me that Ghana today don't have expertise to manage ECG? They have. It's the political influence that stops them from doing their work.
So you don't agree?
I don't agree because I feel we are capable. Look, it's a monopolistic area where tons of money come in.
Okay.
And anybody who comes in and sees tons of money, they won't even employ your people. And if they employ your people become second citizens in the business. Go to Centio today, ask Ghanaian workers there, and let them tell you what is happening.
Okay. Let me go on to the Zoom now and bring in John Jinapo. He wanted to make an intervention. John, you had an intervention to make.
Honorable Japa referred to the 2022 annual report and then 2023, page 8. Then if you look at the 2023 document, and if I quote, according to GMPC, total outstanding receivables from Ghana, GNGC, that's Ghana National Gas, with respect to raw gas supplied, amounted to 605,691,000.
Okay, now I get.
381.
Yes. Now I get.
So
I get. No.
Gas.
Okay. So this is primarily the foundation volumes that GMPC essentially was selling to Ghana Gas. Right? Ghana Gas then processes and sells to VRE. VRE uses it to generate the power for ECG. ECG is supposed to collect and pay, but is unable to collect to pay. So this is not debt to the upstream operators.
Okay.
That distinction must be made clear. It's not debt to the upstream. No, I know. I was on the board of Ghana Gas, so I know this issue.
It's even worse now.
I'm saying that I know that debt between GMPC and Ghana Gas and VRE.
No, I know.
But it's not debt that is owed to. That initially, the impression I got was that this is debt that we owe to Talo and ENI.
So he says he's
that's why.
point. Let him finish and then okay, John. So make your point.
See, this was foundation gas. Now there's no foundation gas, and if you read the 2023 report, it's even worse because now this is gas that is priced at $2.9 per MMBT. If you read the latest report, that has not also been paid.
But that's why I said that. No, Jay, that's a bill that Ministry of Finance has picked up.
I'm coming there, Minister. I'm coming
just
there.
As the.
But can you let him land so that you can come in there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So John, can you land for me?
Then the worrying aspect of the Ministry of Finance is that since August, the Ministry of Finance hasn't paid even 1 cedi in respect of what MMDAs have consumed, i.e. hospitals, police, and the rest. So the situation is getting worse by the day. Then the Minister of Finance asks ECG, go and buy fuel. I will pay you. That has also not been paid. So my worry is that look, it's confounding. And it's getting more serious.
Okay. All right.
Quickly, Mr. Jantua and Dr. Mantiel, when we say private sector participation, my understanding is not that go and take a foreign player. Mr. Jantua, you can do a good job. If we farm out Tema for you and say that constitute a Ghanaian company under the Local Content Act, we'll give you boundary metering, we give you the power. Yours is to deliver and collect the money and keep a percentage. That is doable. Yeah. And so let's not think about that PDS trial where you want to hand over the whole.
But that is what the politicians always go for. That's what they always go for.
Of course,
that's what they go for.
So would you accept it if you are given assurance by the politicians that
if
it would allow local?
If it's local,
okay, but he's saying something. He's answering. Yeah,
I'm landing. So first of all, we did a similar one with Goyle. Yeah. And Dr. Mantia, you might want to check the Goyle architecture that we did. Ghanaians took part, and now government doesn't have so much say as far as Goyle is concerned. I'm saying that, look, as for the political interference, in this current state, it will always happen. The politicians will promise you, but because we want to win power, when we get there, we want to pretend to be satisfying the people only to accumulate debt. Let's agree that that structure can work. If we agree it can work, the next step is, how do you structure it such that Ghanaians can take the commanding height? It will be transparent.
And how do you choose the companies?
It will be accountable. Then you do the right thing.
JJ, how do you choose the company? And the company shouldn't be politically separate.
Then do it for me. I need to
make a small political statement. To make a small political statement.
But honorable,
I beg you. Just one.
I like the Goyle example you gave.
He says he wants to make a political point.
Yes,
just short.
And then we have
gentlemen.
And then we have SIC.
Gentlemen,
one second.
Gentlemen, he says he wants to make a political
I beg you, 1 second.
Yeah.
This one is a political statement. Dr. Manjia,
yeah,
you can be sure, and I say this on authority, that under a Mahama president, a consultant, you will be a consultant.
Honorable, when you were at the ministry, we made these proposals to you when you were there before the PDS deal. That one of the best options we proposed in our position paper was to go through the stock exchange. You were at the ministry at the time.
We'll learn.
And he got it.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let me bring in.
But you're not going to allow me to also make a political statement.
Okay. Fair chance. Make it, and let's move on.
So, but of course, I think this is a very serious engagement, and I'm glad I accepted to come, even though the notice came to me very, very late.
But you
yesterday
enjoyed
evening.
it.
Yes, I've thoroughly enjoyed it because it's. These engagements help. Okay. See, this PSP, of course, the thinking, it's not been firmed up because the minister constituted a team, former MD of ECG. What's his name? I've forgotten his name. Okay, to head. There's been some back and forth.
Engineer Mono or something.
No.
Okay.
It's not. Akwaku.
Okay.
Akwaku. So he's the one who is consulting to get this done. The whole idea is not to disintegrate ECG. It's only the collection. And like John said, they already started deploying the boundary metering, right? You can confirm that. You are working on your boundary metering project.
Mr. Antaji, are you working on it?
No, I can confirm that.
You cannot confirm that. Yes, I know. As a matter of fact, that they're working on the boundary metering. They've installed quite a number. Okay. So the thinking was, why don't you allow private people to take segments? ECG still does all the PPAs. They control the market. They handle the faults and all that. Just the pull to the consumer, knowing how much power that you brought into, say, Accra West. All you're doing is get your guarantees from the private sector person, okay, and they pay you for the power that you brought in. What he then has to do is to make sure that he meters the consumers and collects his money. Of course, you make some return. Okay, that's what businesses do. But ECG then has its bulk amount for the power that is sold into a particular boundary to pay everybody else within the value chain.
Because a private player will pay ECG
precisely
for that. But let's make it a point, because people will be asking about, we're using prepaid meters now. Which customers are we looking at getting the private sectors to come into play here?
Well, it's interesting, but the meters itself, plenty communities in Ghana that the meters don't work, that are bypassing, that are not 40 meters are deployed,
and those
no meters at all.
Is it that? But you know, there's a process already ongoing.
Yes,
to address all these.
I know.
So let's take it. If all these have been corrected,
I think ECG started.
So you see the point. Okay. I don't have a problem.
So land for
that's
me.
Why I said right from the beginning that I know that it's received some resistance from ECG.
Okay.
And you can hear him not directly confirming, but from his own statement that if we are doing all this, then the status quo must remain. But of course, if the status quo remains, of course, that's exactly what you say. If the status quo, we have always been wait.
Okay.
If the status quo remains, and you can collect 95% of your collections, the monies that is due you for power that you've sold, nobody will have an issue with you.
Okay. All right.
Nobody.
Okay.
Because then you were in a position to pay all the IPP's bills, pay for your fuel, pay the transmission company, pay all the generators, and everybody sits happily after. I don't have any problems at all if ECG on its own can introduce efficiency measures that allows them to collect 98% as PURC has given you.
Oh, which is what they are doing now.
Okay.
They have a revenue assurance task force when Buga collecting money.
Yeah, but it's still
Thank you, gentlemen. Let me now bring in Dr. Nida Kwasante. He's a former PRC commissioner into the discussion, especially on the point about PRC not being able to help ECG to know exactly how much they are being paid for, right? That's the point you make. Doc, thank you for joining us, joining this national discussion. So, what do you...
My pleasure.
You've been a commissioner before. ECG says they've been paying the IPPs, not knowing exactly how much power they are paying. They are paying the IPPs for. How does that come to you?
Good evening. I think there's a bit of lack of candor here. Gridco does the metering of all the IPPs. So when the bills are issued, it's for a specified amount of power. These bills are submitted to ECG, they are vetted by ECG, and also vetted by the Cash Waterfall Committee. The bills are seen in terms of how much power was generated, and so there's no ambiguity about how much power ECG is purchasing. The issue really has been about the tariff and whether the tariff is cost reflective. And I recall, I think it was Honorable Jinapo who said that the tariff is not cost reflective. I would say that the tariff is much more cost reflective now than it has ever been. We have had a series of automatic or quarterly adjustments in the last few quarters, which a lot of people have complained about, that the tariff was constantly going up. But whenever the exchange rate is also going in the wrong direction, it's inevitable. So when I say it's more cost reflective, I have to point out that when we purchase oil as opposed to the gas, the additional cost is not in the tariff. When we talk about whatever is defined as excess capacity, that cost is not in the tariff. And when we talk about losses that ECG makes in excess of what PRC has passed through the tariff, which was in the order of 20% reducing every year, anything that ECG does in excess of that is not in the tariff. So it's cost reflective, but it may not capture all the costs because some of the costs were not deemed, if you like, prudent. There may be some other discrepancies here and there, but at least if anybody wants to check the tariff reports that PRC issues after every quarterly adjustment, you can see the basis of the tariff. I, however, want to point out that ECG, as per the cash waterfall reports, was only generating close to 50% of the costs incurred in supplying the power. So when you add the cost of generation, the cost of transmission, and the legitimate cost of distribution, and then you put that on one side and you compare with the revenue that ECG is able to generate for the same period, it only covered about 50%. So whichever way you play it, somebody is not going to get paid. So the cash waterfall mechanism is actually a form of financial load shedding. Somebody does not get paid. The only thing that it's trying to do is to ensure that the pain is spread equally so that somebody doesn't enjoy when somebody else is starving. Prior to the cash waterfall mechanism, ECG had the discretion to pay who it wanted, how much it wanted, and keep as much of the revenue as it chose for itself. This is what the cash waterfall no longer permits them to do. And when people say the cash waterfall mechanism is not working, what tended to happen is that ECG would keep a greater proportion of the share of the revenue than they were entitled to.
Okay.
And so that is part of the challenge. In this latest version of the cash waterfall, there's a tier 1 and a tier 2, where tier 1 is the IPPs, and they are guaranteed, I believe we're saying 70% of their cost. And this is only their capacity charge. And then the 30% was supposed to be paid at a future date. And again, we don't know where that money will come from to pay them. But the fuel costs are not paid in full either. So whichever way you look at it, we are still accumulating shortfall. Now, the key thing to bear in mind is that this shortfall arises from two things. Any reduction in the tariff that it doesn't cover oil or excess capacity or excess losses. But from the ECG side, there are two things that happen. Sometimes ECG bills people for power that it does not collect. So people do not pay for bills that have been issued, and that includes hospitals, schools, government institutions, and so on, but also some private sector institutions. There are private entities who are not paying ECG for power they are consuming. But the second one is theft. Some people are bypassing meters. Some people don't even have meters, whether they are fake meters or whatever. So some people are consuming power, and ECG is not even billing them for that power. That part is what PRC has allowed up to about 20% for them, because no matter what you do, there'll be some theft. But this is going in excess of 30%. So when that happens and we choose to privatize or to bring private sector participation, it's essential to make sure that whatever mechanism we put in, the private sector participants will be incentivized to collect that lost power.
Okay.
And that is where the challenge is, because it's not straightforward.
Okay.
Some of this power is going to street lights, because most of our street lights are not metered. Some people put street lights and point them at their homes. Sometimes there are street lights in places which ECG does not know about. So power is being consumed and not paid for.
Okay.
All of this, if we do private sector, who is going to capture that cost? We have to make sure that we don't, in our haste to try and privatize, have a situation where these losses are just continued. So it's not that simple. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that both ECG and NEDCO reduce both collection losses and distribution losses, which is including theft.
The question is, why don't we look at why ECG is not able to collect? What is the problem that is stopping ECG from collecting? There must be a situation.
Okay.
Let me ask Doc a question from the, what do you call it, PwC report. And I will quote, this has got to do with the cash waterfall mechanism. It says, it will be useful, and you should tell me whether it's true or false, it will be useful for PRC to take advantage of technology-enabled solutions to facilitate a system that provides real-time data, independent validation, and a stronger reconciliation system to support a more efficient monitoring and evaluation process in the cash waterfall declaration process. Are they not using technology to identify these things? And if they are not, why aren't they?
Okay.
That question should be answered. We are skirting the board. There's a problem there. They are not collecting. What is creating them not to collect?
Okay.
Let's solve that problem.
Okay. So let me see if we can get a response from Doc, and then I'll come to Mr. Yantichi to answer what is preventing them from collecting. Doc, you have a response to Mr. Janto's question?
So in terms of the data for the cash waterfall, that data is not available to PRS in real time, but GRIDCO has it. And I think some measures have been put or have been requested for GRIDCO to extend that to both the Energy Commission and PRC. I believe GRIDCO was having some challenges with doing that, but that should happen. However, the more important measure referred to. Now that would show how much power is going to a particular locality and compare that with how much money is metered as being consumed. And the gap between those two would be the losses, as in distribution losses. Now, ECG tells us that they have done some regions and even some districts. But to date, they are not showing those figures, as in how much is going into those regions that they have done the boundary metering for, as compared to how much is metered as being sold. Okay. Now, obviously, if they provided that data, it would help everybody to see where the losses are happening and therefore put some focus on improving performance in those areas. Now, that gives you an indication of the problem. Nobody really wants to be held responsible for losses that are ongoing. And as a result, nobody is, should I say, motivated or compelled to do anything to reduce those losses. So year on year, we see the losses, but in effect, nobody is really responsible for them. So the losses continue. Okay. For the first time, and I must commend my former colleagues at the PRC for trying to make the management and board of the ECG responsible for some of the, should I say, departures or deviations from what needs to be done. There's still some challenges as to whether there is a legal mandate for that or whatever. But at the end of the day, somebody has to be held responsible other than that faceless ECG. We blame ECG, but ECG is not a natural person. There are individuals who are paid and mandated to make the necessary performance improvements. And so far as I know, no MD, no board member has ever been fired for the poor performance of ECG over the years. And that explains why ECG, to my mind, is not making progress. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Antachi, the question about why you're not collecting enough for what you sell.
Well, I think it's a myriad of factors. And he mentioned the issue about meters. He mentioned the issue about power theft. These are also some of the contributory factors to the losses. But if you realize for the past almost about 2 years, significant effort is being made by the current management to improve the collections. But again, it still brings us to the issue of finances. You need meters to be able to get all the power that is being built accurately collected. Meters, even though the LRP project is trying to address that, but it's not at the pace that everybody will expect it, because even the private manufacturers who are supposed to supply these meters, the meters are not coming in the way it ought to.
Okay.
And then when it comes to the issue of power theft, the system is so loose that there is virtually no disincentive for people who are stealing the power, because when even they are accosted, what's the sanctions regime that will deter people from not continuing this line?
Okay.
Though these are awesome, and then you cannot also run away. I always say that for me, the major issue of facing all these public sector institutions is the politics.
Okay. The politics should be out of the public sector institutions. Interesting. Now let's spend the next segment looking for the solutions. Let's bring the solutions out. Doc, you are with the independent generators. What is needed to produce reliable power for Ghana?
Thank you very much. From all the discussions that we have, the submissions made, from where I see it as a private business person, and looking at ECG, governance is a major problem that is creating the challenges that ECG is facing.
Okay.
I feel we should allow the actors in the electricity supply value chain to be part of ECG governance system.
Okay.
For instance, we take the board of ECG, allow every actor to be represented in that board. Let them have the right in selecting the management of ECG. This will go a long way to ensure that the right thing is done. An opportunity should also be given to the private players. For instance, the IPPs, we are ready to invest in ECG. There is no point going to look for money anywhere, coming to buy meter or to inject into ECG. We are ready for that. And if we know the sustainability of ECG is key to our survival, we will do everything possible to protect it. Look at our investment in the power sector. We've been very diligent in our business. Why won't you protect where our money will come from? So all the rhetorics, power theft here and there, privatization, I don't see it as a key solution to making ECG work. Let's look within. We can make it work.
But you coming on board is privatization, isn't it?
No, what I mean, we are already in the sector. So our involvement, we are already part of the process. Yes. Our involvement will bring a change.
Yeah, but you going in to be part of ECG means that ECG should be privatizing to allow for private.
Well, we can take it as a form of privatization. Okay. But I feel because we are already part of the system, it's already an inborn solution.
Interesting.
Is ECG and the power installations, is it a security issue? And if it is, can we allow private sector to come in?
You may even want to look at look at the problem in a much broader context. Every country should have strategic sectors where it safeguards. So, for instance, you are talking about the energy sector, you are talking about the power and what you call the water sector, you are talking about the finance sector, you are talking about the telecom sector. These are sectors that you should be careful in opening them up for private participation, especially foreign multinationals. 2, we should always be mindful that when international investors get into the service sector, our local currency suffers.
We don't have control.
Because they don't produce anything tangible that they can sell to generate revenue. They just bring services. And what they do is that all the profit they make has to be converted into foreign currency.
Capital
so
flights.
it's your gold dollar, your petroleum dollar that you will convert and take it away. So you suffer a lot. Your local currency can never get strength. And so we need to look at all both the upside and the downside of what is being proposed.
Which means that even if there's going to be any privatization of ECG, we should be strategic to say it should be Ghana focused.
But even if necessarily they can come in, and I think their concern is they want to secure where their money is coming from. So we can give them some minority stake in that bit, but not to get them into the entire ECG. To the extent that they sit on the board of ECG.
But is that what will guarantee us reliable power?
But that's what we've said here, that the problem really is with the last mile.
Which is ECG.
And you want to bring in private sector participation. And they are saying that they are interest holders. They want to make sure that they get their money.
I, without interrogating it in detail, I see a conflict there. Because you are the counterparty to the PPAs. Right? So how do you then go back to one side to execute agreements with yourselves? So I like I said, I haven't interrogated it. You just mentioning this. I'm hearing it from.
But you see,
I mean, what I want us to do now is for us to prefer the solution.
I just wanted to make
let's understand what needs to be done. What can we do to ensure or guarantee the reliable power that we're looking for? But make a point.
Look, in 2010, when we discovered oil, the thinking was that in 10 years, GMPC would become an IOC. What has happened? We need to strategically build local content and build the capacity in local content for them to be able to part and parcel of some of these things. Today, is GMPC and IOC? They are not. But we spend billions of dollars in GMPC that we haven't even been able to account for. So even if we're saying local content, that local content should be specific and be able to train them so that they can take over.
All right. So now I come back to you, all of you. What needs to change to ensure that we guarantee this country the reliable power we're looking for? But even before we get there, let me ask you, Dr. Mantea. Now, Gridco has been asked to stop exporting power to our neighboring countries. Where we understand that Ghana is revered in the ECOWAS sub-region because of the reliability in our power supply. Now we've stopped it. We understand it's not bringing in revenue to Gridco again. Again, it has not really improved our power situation that much. Should the situation still be the same?
Well, I think we need to look at the cost and the benefit sides, because of course these exports were bringing in forex. But to what extent was the forex helping to procure, for instance, fuel? If there's a way in which we can leverage the export of the forex to procure fuel to ensure sustainable power generation, then of course we need to balance our act.
All right. Then.
Kojo, you know something that we also haven't looked at, that if we looked at, it won't cost us too much. Galamsey, if we were to procure mini dams on most of these rivers that have turned into debt, would we not be able to provide electricity in some of the areas and even export some? We won't even have to buy fuel because it's hydro. It's hydro. We can do it, but we haven't really sat down to see how we are going to sort this Galamsey situation out. So the rivers are being polluted, but we can use the rivers to our advantage.
I know there was a work like during the Kufuor time. I don't know how it went. I don't know where.
Let's look at it in a much broader context. The reason our oil fields are plateauing is because of energy transition. If you go to the EU, they have a program called the Taxonomy Program, which discourages investments in fossil fuels, okay, but encourages investments in green technology. Now, we have not as a country prioritized our renewables. And we've not made enough effort to attract investments into renewable technology. But for a poor country like Ghana, that is where we should be looking.
We are not poor.
Because because there are no fuel costs to renewable power generation. So if you have a solar panel, what's the fuel cost for your solar power? You just wash them when they are dirty with water. And that's it, you are good to go. And replace the battery when they are old.
But that's also expensive, the batteries.
Yes, but the cost is coming down. And I keep saying that God must be a Ghanaian.
Yes.
Because look, we have what it takes to develop our renewable energy resources. We have abundant silica sand in the western region. From Atwabo all the way to Aboso area. Silica sand, plenty. Even in the 60s, Kwame Nkrumah found it necessary to set up the glass factory.
Yes.
What do you need to produce solar panels? Just coat the glass surface with photovoltaic material, and you're good to go. So all our high-rise buildings in Accra could be generators. Once you coat the surfaces with photovoltaic material, they absorb the sun rays and then convert them into power that can be used internally. Again, I said God is a Ghanaian because he's given us lithium. We are on our way to discovering graphite. These are all critical minerals that you need for energy transition.
Yeah.
We have manganese, but look, we export our manganese in its raw form. We have bauxite, which is also a critical mineral for the transition. We export our bauxite in its raw form.
Aluminium.
We need to rethink and begin to prioritize renewable energy, make the right investment.
Look, I think there's some work that has been done in that space.
Yeah, but
I'm sure you've seen our energy transition document.
I've seen the document, but you see,
which
incidentally,
is pretty extensive in terms of how
it wasn't. Let me tell you what.
You were involved in the formulation, you know.
Yes, I had an engagement with your minister.
We engaged you.
Yeah, we did.
So
we did. No, you see, there was
extensive stakeholder engagement in the formulation and drafting of the energy transition document.
The engagement did not involve the Ministry of Mines and Energy. Yes, the Mines and Forestry, Lands and Forestry. And so in our meeting with the ministry,
department, and agency,
Honorable, I want to actually make a statement of fact. We met with your minister and we pointed out that gap. The good thing is that he acknowledged it and incorporated. We even pointed him to the fact that we had an energy transition and critical minerals document that has been produced by my committee, the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. And he directed his people to consult the document and incorporate it. So it's been incorporated, but not extensive, just a sentence or two. And then again, that transition document is not ambitious enough. It looks at 2070 as a time frame for our transition. Look, by that time, the train would have left the station.
So you're saying that in our bid to ensure or guarantee reliable power supply, renewable is the way to go.
It's the way to go. And God has blessed us with the resources we need. What we can do, and look at the Petroleum Revenue Management Framework. Let me conclude on this. The Petroleum Revenue Management Framework. It lists about 13 areas where we can prioritize. 4 in every medium term. Okay.
Every 3
renewable energy is one of them. In the 14 years that we've been producing oil, we've never prioritized expenditure of petroleum revenues on renewable energy technology. Time has come. This year marks the end of the last, medium term. So I want to encourage government to begin to reprioritize the expenditure in favor of renewable energy technology. So some of the petroleum revenue that are available for spending through the budget must go into those type of research and investments. And again, GNPC must be encouraged to begin to diversify its investments to becoming a fully fledged energy company. That's the way most of the countries are going. So GNPC could, for instance, partner GIHOC. It is GIHOC Distillery that has been in discussion with government to revamp the Aboso glass factory to produce bottles okay, for alcoholic beverages.
That started since they came to power 20.
Yeah, they almost concluded.
Really?
They almost concluded. But I'm saying that GNPC can get in there and invest so that we can produce solar panels and which we can sell and bring down the cost of solar panels and then transition.
All right, thank you so much. Yes.
I have two areas that one needs to look at with regards to sustaining power. There needs to be a policy where we indicate from a certain time T, any new building that is built in this country should have a solar panel. Any new building.
Yeah.
Any new building. And those that are old buildings, we find a way to also put solar on them. Within 10 years, we would have solarized this country very well. And the conventional power would then go into industry. Number two, if we are not going to dam all the little rivers we have, then the nuclear question too is very important. Very, very important, because nowadays you have many nuclear power plants that, and nuclear is like the safest part of power, like aeroplanes, safest part of transportation. We need to look at it and stop the bickering as to who we want to bring in this nuclear power for us. There's too much bickering going on there. And let us move quickly. Because look, when you go to the nuclear laboratory, the nuclear place there in Kwabinya, go in there and see the fortified buildings and the machinery that was brought during Nkrumah's time. It still works today. They are still using it to train nuclear scientists here in Ghana today. And so we've got to look at it. But in looking at it, we've got to be able to educate the public as to what it means and how it will help us move on. With regards to what is going on here, I think we need a situation where all should sit down, including the politicians. Some of the areas that we are looking at should be strengthened, especially the collection of revenues by ECG. And I don't think if we are going to really diversify, bring privatization in, then it has to be local companies. And those local companies shouldn't be party faithfuls and people of parties. It should be people who we know can do the job.
All right. Thank you so much.
One point on the issue of solar on every building, I'm afraid that may take ECG out of business. But I will support a utility scale kind of solar installation that should go through the normal.
Because it will also affect their business as well.
So let's consider a utility scale instead of.
They can export a lot of their power, can't they?
Yeah.
But you can reduce the burden on the grid.
Yes.
Okay, through some off-grid solutions for villages and all that, for rural
we can work something out. We can definitely work something out.
Okay.
But these embedded generations are part of ECG's challenges.
Yes, of course. That's why a ban was imposed sometime back when the excess capacity was.
Let's find a way.
So on exporting, someone says WAP with external support is funding an 850 kilometer 33 kV North Core transmission line project between Nigeria, Niger, Benin, Burkina Faso.
Yes.
If this project completes and Nigerians are able to export power reliably, Ghana should know that.
Oh, they cannot. They cannot.
But wait. See,
Nigeria.
Interestingly,
Nigeria. Talking about
interestingly, I was in Niamey, right?
Yeah.
That's Sudan.
Niger.
I was in Niger with His Excellency the President when this North Core project, the sword was being cut. Okay. It's a whole system of transmission infrastructure that is being developed across West Africa. Okay. So I don't see how that North Core impacts our ability to generate and export. Even because it's an interconnected system.
And in fact, we are hosting the West African power pool here.
All right, I hear. Let me hear your point about how we can reliably guarantee reliable power supply.
For me, I think that the various sectors, actors in the sector, needs to operate in a transparent manner. And the big hand of government should be also taken off
Define big hand.
So, the appointment of governing boards, appointment of top CEOs and MDs, we had always postulated that we should get people through open adverts based on contract arrangement with measurable KPIs, key performance indicators. If the person does not meet those targets, everybody is clear, you have failed, you are out. If the person meets the target, it doesn't matter which government is in power, the contract must be respected. Once we are able to reduce the level of political interference and we are able to mobilize some resources through local investment, and I believe that there are resources within the country. If we do diligent, we can get people or even institutions to come into the sector and ensure that the institutions operate efficiently.
Okay.
And we should also watch this physician always thinking that all the problems is at ECG. We need to look at the whole value chain. And it's not just only ECG.
But that's sort of, there's a conclusion on that bit anyway. But yeah, Mr. Mensah.
I don't know why there seems to be a fixation on the appointment as being the issue. Because
I mean the appointment of politicians or politically connected people.
of course, there will always be every Ghanaian citizen is connected politically one way or the other. And so if we are,
but when that becomes the overriding consideration,
it doesn't mean that you shouldn't appoint competent people. Because for me, that's the most important criteria. Okay, because the constitution is very clear. Okay. Of course, ECG managing director, he's been touted to be doing some amazing things with your digitalization and all that. He's a political appointee, but he's performing. Okay, yes, there's a lot more that has to be done. I agree. And we need to look at the structure and see how we find ways to reform it to enable them collect more. My issue is if ECG collects more and there are gaps, then we begin to look at how we fix those gaps. But if they are not collecting and are attributing their inability to collect some gaps that then we see them as phantom. Okay? But how to ensure that we have sustainable power is all a question of how the investments are made, how ECG is empowered to collect their money. And we need to look at a comprehensive reform of ECG to make sure that that happens. But on the part of...
I think that we focus too much on ECG. We have not brought in NEDCO.
Because NEDCO's operational area is only about 10%.
Yeah. Okay, that's why we are...
that's why most of the time... Yeah. Because it's a subsidiary of VRA. It takes power from VRA.
Straight.
It hasn't signed any PPAs with these independent power producers and all that. So question about how they pay IPPs does not arise. Okay. I'm sure they are able to pay their transmission fees to Greco, and so really they don't have too much of the issues. But I think that a lot has to do with how we roll out our energy transition plan. Okay, going forward with a focused eye on energy security, because recall post Russian invasion of Ukraine. Activity in the fossil fuel space spiked. In fact, even UK started issuing licenses in the North Sea for oil exploration.
Soon after the
precisely.
America the same.
Germany started repowering their coal plants. Why? Because renewables are interruptible, you know. Yes, there is some advancement in battery technology, but you need base load, which renewables don't give you. So that's why we focus, and I agree with you. We need to focus and accelerate our nuclear penetration, because it's clean, it's safe. Of course, when something goes wrong, it's terrible. But
it's internationally...
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. It's part of our energy mix that we've developed under our energy transition framework. And of course, gas, which is generally accepted to be a transition fuel. Cleaner, way cleaner than the rest of the fossil fuels because the gas is a fossil fuel, right? And so we need to invest more, encourage more investment. And I agree, GMPC's empowerment has come rather too late.
And also look
we try to do. Say it again.
Look at hydrogen too.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Hydrogen and all that. Okay, but I can assure you, if you permit me to also make one political statement,
which if you dying to make
at His Excellency the Vice President Gimpa's statement, it was focused on renewable as being a key component of what he is going to do to ensure that energy security.
All right.
Is
okay. So let me go to the chairman of the Energy Committee.
Jay cannot make another political statement.
Mr. Thatcher, so in wrapping up, what do you think is the way to go to ensure that we guarantee reliable power supply? Kindly unmute, Chairman, so we can hear what you're telling us there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Now, yes.
I am fully persuaded that the man who had the wisdom to give us uninterrupted and good power the past 70 years has his own integrity on the line. And as my good friend and old boy from Adisada has said, the woman is going to solve this problem very soon. But what is very critical is that in the energy space, we shouldn't run it like an ambulance. We should not only think in emergencies, we should think long run. That's why I agree with my senior also, Jantua, that now nuclear is a way to go. No dispute about it. And we should think long term. We shouldn't run an ambulance. Number two, the hydro, we've not finished with it yet. So he's very right. As you look at our river bodies, instead of this kind of, if you like, bad, pollution of our water bodies, we should see what we'll get out of it. And the energy mix. I was surprised to hear somebody say that. Play down solar because you ran the IPPs out of business. Why can't you think about being a net exporter of power? So that we should look at solar from a very critical perspective. And what is now very, very, very important for us to look at is that let's see how the turf war and the petty rivalries should cease so that there is a synergy to look at Ghana from all those in the value chain so that we go back to normalcy.
Okay.
This is what I'll say for now.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Nidako Asante, your concluding remarks as to how we can ensure reliable power supply.
Thank you very much. I'll just quickly raise one thing which hasn't been talked about, which is the LNG facility that was being provided in Tema. We are talking a lot about fuel shortage. We have GMPC having contracted a supplier of liquefied natural gas. That plant is, or that facility was probably close to 90% complete prior to the Ukraine war. If we completed it, we would.
Hello, Doc. It's unfortunate. Well,
find money for something to buy it. And the other thing is transparency. That has been mentioned. The recent spat over whether or not we had load shedding should never happen. The professionals running the power sector should tell us whether there's a shortage or not. And Gridco has always been the one responsible for telling us. And we need to depoliticize the whole energy space, hold the regulators accountable, let them do their work. If they don't do it, hold them accountable. And especially the leaders of the distribution companies, ECG, Gridco, if they fail, they need to be fired. But if they are political appointees, they fail and they continue in their jobs, they will never reduce the losses. So we need to take the transparency, we need to depoliticize, and we need to allow the public sector entities. If we have Dumso again, it shouldn't be the government's fault, it should be the Energy Commission's fault. They are required to plan. If they fail to plan, whoever is running it should lose his job. But at the same time, he should be empowered to do his job.
Okay.
Same with financial challenges. If we have losses or we have a financial shortfall, the PRC should be held accountable. But they can only be held accountable if they are allowed to do their jobs. So the political sort of covering and possibly taking credit but not wanting to take the blame needs to stop.
Okay.
That's where I would recommend.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Nida Kwasantes, former PRC Commissioner. Loimesa, I guess from... say again?
JJ has left.
JJ, yes. Okay. From all the discussion, I guess now there's an acceptance that we're in doomsday, right? And we want to solve it.
I don't know whether...
No political statement.
So Loimesa, are we in doomsday or we are not?
We have some challenges.
Partially.
That is being resolved. It relates to fuel, mainly. Okay, and like I said, the arrangement that has been put in place, I believe that in a matter of days we won't be seen, and it's improved significantly.
But the situation is doomsday, right?
I am not going to, as it were, Christian it. You elect to call it what?
In 2015, 2016, you gave definitions.
You want to know 4 years as opposed to 3 months.
Okay.
So you want us to go into that debate?
Okay.
So this is a short.
No. It's like I said. I mean,
transient.
There are issues, but
doomsday is doomsday. Lights off. Doomsday is doomsday.
Anyway, okay.
Because if you look at the figures that I mentioned, that you put out, 4,000 or so.
Yeah.
You can have generation, but you have.
Well, that 4,000 was from 20.
No, that's January to March.
No, January to
March.
March.
Anyway,
50%.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm so grateful to you for coming. To Lawyer Andrew Japamesa, my own man from Secondary, and former deputy minister. We don't know whether he's former or he's still hanging of energy. Makio Nyantichi is the general secretary of POO, Public Work and Utility Workers Union, and then Mr. Kwame Jantia Esquire. He is an energy consultant. Dr. Steve Mantea is chairman coalition of stakeholders on electricity contract and arrangement. And also we had Dr. Elikplim Kwabla Kwatogo. He's the chief executive of Independent Power Generators Ghana. Thank you so much for joining us. I would want to conclude on this. Someone says, great analysis. Thank you. It's a great show. I'm doing the listening. Papa Yenzu Kwansa from Kwesmin Team Takrade. So on that note, we say thank you very much for making this discussion a very worthy one for people to listen and watch. And thank you to those of you who joined via Zoom, and especially to those of you who did the viewing in your various homes and offices, and to those of you who listened on Joy 99.7 FM. Thank you so much. On behalf of the production team, led by the Venerable Evans Mensah, I say thank you for being a part of us. We'll meet again, God willing, another time. My name is Samuel Kojo Brace. Have a great evening.